tariffs at the World Trade Organization.
Vicki Barker reports the list includes more than $100 billion worth of U.S.-made goods to be targeted. Governor Kemp signs legislation today that bars state funds from covering transgender care that includes cosmetic procedures or hormone replacement therapies for the state's prison inmates.
Taxpayer dollars should not be used for procedures like this, and this legislation codifies that common sense step.
Kemp also signed a measure to double the payout to $150,000 for a full-time school employee if they are killed on the job. Both measures take effect immediately. There's a new Republican entry in Georgia's Senate race. Congressman Buddy Carter announces his campaign in a new ad describing himself as a MAGA warrior and featuring a message from President Trump.
Buddy Carter, warrior, great guy.
Carter is the first prominent Georgia Republican to announce that he'll challenge Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff since Governor Kemp announced this week that he would not enter that 2026 race. Well, a federal judge tosses the bulk of the claims against Delta Airlines in a class action lawsuit after last summer's massive tech outage.
Groups of domestic and international flyers sued. They alleged in the proposed class action that Delta did not do an adequate job of making up for widespread flight delays and cancellations triggered by a software update from CrowdStrike. But a federal judge has ruled that many of the claims were preempted by the Airline Deregulation Act. The judge did allow a breach of contract claim to move forward. I'm Bloomberg's Gina Cervetti for 95.5 WSB.
Officials with the city of Peachtree Corners in Gwinnett County will share with the public tonight the findings of a study about whether they can feasibly operate their own police department.
A third-party feasibility study looked at a variety of factors, including the pros and cons of leaving the city in the Gwinnett County Police Department's jurisdiction. City Manager Brian Johnson says that was the option chosen when the city incorporated in 2012.
When we were first incorporated, the decision was made for us to essentially rent police service from Gwinnett County.
The meeting is at 7 tonight. You can attend in person at Christ the King Lutheran Church on Peachtree Parkway or online on the city's website. Graham Carroll, 95.5 WSB.
A new study from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta finds that Americans' life expectancy rose in 2023.
In some southern states, according to the CDC, life expectancy changed very little after the pandemic. The authors blame differences in public health policies among individual states for regional discrepancies. In California, an early adopter of anti-smoking policies, people are living longer than in Kentucky, a state that was slower to discourage tobacco use.
Jim Ryan reports it is, though, however, at the highest level since the COVID-19 pandemic. It is 12:04 now, time for live team coverage of traffic and weather. Alex Williams is in the WSB 24-hour traffic center.
Seeing a jam on I-20 westbound in Rockdale County through Conyers. We got a crash trying to figure out which lane is blocked here before Sigmund Road exits 78, but either way, the brake lights stretch back just before West Avenue. Elsewhere, travel advisory with construction, 316 westbound. Now we got it in the right lane at High Hope Road. You're jammed up out of Decula. You can use Sugarloaf Parkway or Winder Highway as alternates to avoid that. And left lane construction continues in Clayton County, the 75 northbound ramp to 285 westbound down by the airport. Alex Williams, 95.5 WSB.
Now it's time for Atlanta Radio's only 5-day forecast, sponsored by Shoemate, the official air conditioning of Atlanta. Here's WSB meteorologist Christina Edwards.
Partly to mostly cloudy this afternoon, warm and muggy with a high of 81. Pop-up showers and thunderstorms through the afternoon and evening hours. Lows tonight in the low 60s. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with an isolated rain shower possible, high near 80. Saturday and Sunday, mostly cloudy, breezy with areas of drizzle. Morning lows in the upper 50s, daytime highs in the mid 60s. And on Monday, cloudy with widespread rain showers, high near 70.
While there are some pop-up showers possible, Storm Tracker radar shows no showers in the metro area right now. It is 72 degrees in South Fulton, 73 in Dunwoody, and 74 degrees in Midtown Atlanta. More news at 12:30. Breaking news when it happens. I'm Austin Eller, 95.5 WSB.
Here we go, friends. It's the 5K a day bonus blitz. Your noon keyword is joy. J-O-I, joy. Enter the keyword joy into the WSB Radio app or WSBradio.com/cash. You have until 12:30 p.m. to enter the keyword and win $1,000. Again, the keyword is joy, J-O-Y. And don't forget, if you get a phone call after 12:30 from a number you don't recognize, answer it. Could be us telling you you won $1,000. Keyword's joy. Good luck.
My fellow Americans, it's Eric Erickson nationwide. Glad to be with you. The phone number 877-973-7425. I finally feel like I'm getting a fight against this cold. Glad to have you with me. I'll be in Southern Pines broadcasting live tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you guys up there at WEEB. We've got to begin with the trade deal. We have a trade deal with the United Kingdom. This is the President of the United States a short time ago at the White House.
I just want to begin by saying that this is a very special day because it's Victory Day, World War II, May 8th. And just by happenstance, we have the Prime Minister on the phone, and we were great allies in that, and it's very unusual that the trade deal comes due, and we signed it up on the same day that we had a great victory, the greatest victory of them all. So we are talking more and more about Victory Day because we were a big part of it, and so was the UK, and it's just, I guess, I don't know what you call it, it's just incredible that that day is the same day that we signed a tremendous trade deal for both countries. So I'm going to begin by just adding that we just concluded the rare earth deal with Ukraine. That's been fully ratified and approved by their legislative branches, and so we appreciate that, and I'll be speaking with the president in a little while, a little bit later, and we appreciate that, but the deal is all now signed up and ratified, and we have access to a massive amount of very, very high-quality rare earth.
So we got two deals. We've got the ratified mineral rights deal in Ukraine. We've got the UK trade deal. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. The UK trade deal amounts to a tax increase on American consumers, a 10% tax increase. And this is the thing you're going to need to watch in all seriousness. I mean, take my opposition to tariffs out of it. We have been told repeatedly over the last several weeks that the 10% baseline tariffs were a negotiating tactic to get to full free trade with bilateral trade deals. We've now got our first bilateral trade deal with the United Kingdom, and it turns out American tariffs are going to stay at 10%. In fact, they're going to go up. American tariffs on British imports had been about 1% to 2%.
This is Bill Caiaccio live from the WSB Breaking News Desk. We are watching the Sistine Chapel right now, and there is white smoke coming from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, which means we have a new pope. Smoke appearing over the Sistine Chapel right now. We are watching it live. There is a big celebration going on at St. Peter's Square right now as the smoke signals that a new pope has been elected. And in the next few minutes, we are going to learn who that person is, which cardinal was elected as the next pope. So again, white smoke is coming from the Sistine Chapel. And at this hour, that means we do have a new pope. So it took, I guess, the better part of 2 days to come to this 2/3 majority of the cardinals who are voting at the Sistine Chapel. So just to give you a little historical reference, as far as previous popes are concerned, Pope Benedict and Pope Francis were both elected on the second day of voting. So this is about the same as for those previous popes. But they were, Benedict required 4 rounds of voting, and Francis took 5. So this is about the same amount of time it took to elect Popes Benedict and Francis as well. So we have white smoke signals coming from the Sistine Chapel at this hour, which means we do have a new pope. There are bells ringing now in St. Peter's Square, and let's go live now to CNN's coverage of this at St. Peter's Square.
Traditionally, popes who have just been elected are often overwhelmed by emotion, and then he'll be fitted into the white cassock. They have 3 sizes: small, medium, and large.
And these are the bells we are now hearing, and you can see this right over St. Peter's Basilica over our shoulder. We will show you. You can actually see the giant bell ringing, and that is the formal announcement and confirmation that there is a new pope here as the head of the Catholic Church in Rome.
You're listening to live coverage on 95.5 WSB. I'm Bill Caiaccio at the Breaking News Desk, and we have white smoke coming from the Sistine Chapel right now at this hour. We are listening also to CNN's coverage from St. Peter's Square as the crowd erupts after seeing the white smoke, confirming that a new pope has been elected by the cardinals at the Sistine Chapel.
No one
Let's go back to St. Peter's Square, CNN's coverage.
Selected and elected until we see that man walk out on the balcony with the red curtains behind us here on St. Peter's Square, which we can all see. So now, in these next minutes, as we await that, Christopher, I would imagine the tens of thousands of people who are already here, now these bells are ringing out over Rome. People will come.
Oh, yes.
More and more people will come to perhaps be among the very first to see the Pope. We won't know who it is until we see his face.
He will be introduced to everyone at the same time.
Yes.
And it will be the Cardinal Deacon, the Proto-Deacon, Dominic Mamberti, who will announce it. Of course, if it's not him announcing it, then he could be elected.
You know,
but we are expecting Cardinal Mamberti, the Proto-Deacon, to make the announcement, Habemus Papa, and he will then give the name of the Cardinal elected Pope and the name that the new Pope has decided to take.
And at 12:12 from the News Center in Atlanta, you are listening to live from St. Peter's Square at the Vatican in Rome. Let's just listen for a minute here as the bells there have started to ring, along with that white smoke. And there we are, the historic sound from St. Peter's Square, the sound now to go along with the sight of that white smoke, which has billowed forth there from that famous and ancient tradition chimney, signifying that a new pope has been elected. This will have been on either the fourth or the fifth ballot. We'll have to find out for sure what has happened behind closed doors. And the procedure now is set, as it just has been for centuries and centuries. The new pope, whoever he is now selecting. He won't be cardinal anymore. He will pick his papal name. He will, for real, get dressed, and then we will see him be announced there on that Vatican balcony. The bells continuing to ring in St. Peter's Square. WSB's Bill Caiaccio is here with me. We had just about decided, Bill, that it was not going to be this time around.
Yeah, so we just saw the white smoke a few minutes ago, Chris, and so here's what's happening now. You have me? Here's... Got it? Okay, so here's what's happening now as far as the process is concerned. The newly elected Pope will ask if he accepts the election and what name he would. Yeah, there you go. That's it, Chris. Okay, so the newly elected Pope is asked if he accepts the election and what name he wishes to take. So this is what's going to happen after the election. Once he accepts and chooses a name, he'll then appear on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica to deliver his first public blessing. A senior cardinal will then announce that we have a new Pope. So once again, the process, he will accept his name. The new Pope asked if he accept his name. Then there will be a private prayer and blessing. The new Pope will have time for private prayer and then bless the cardinals who elected him. Then the public announcement comes where there will be an announcement saying that we have a new Pope. And then the new Pope will appear on the balcony. The new Pope will emerge on the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica and deliver his first public blessing. So that's the process we're looking at from the time we saw the white smoke about 10 minutes ago to when we see the Pope coming out shortly.
Let's listen again just for a minute to these sounds from St. Peter's Square. The bells are ringing there. There is a new Pope. We await who it is.
Chandler, there are a few names that we were given that were possible, front runners to become the new Pope. Cardinal Luis Tagle of the Philippines, 67 years old. Also Cardinal Mateo, was it Zuppi?
I think Zuppi. Yes.
Zuppi, okay. He's 69 years old. Cardinal Pietro Parolin, 70 years old. And Cardinal Pierre Battista Pizzaballa, 60 years old. So those were the front runners going in. We'll have to wait and see if one of those four actually won the voting of the 133 Cardinals.
This has actually turned out to be pretty quick compared to a lot of the predictions that we heard about the back and forth. There had been talk coming out of the conclave to a lot of the, well, what would amount to pundits in American terms here, that there might be disagreement and that what consensus there may have been had actually fallen apart within this last couple of weeks. But this is the second day of the conclave. This is either the fourth or the fifth votes, and it has not stretched days and days and days. And in fact, by recent standards, this is even short. Pope John Paul II, it took 3 days, 8 votes. Benedict and Francis each were elected on the second day, also in the second voting session of the day. So this is equal to those. Benedict was 4 rounds of votes. Francis took 5. The only conclave, I learned this trivia yesterday, that ever took 1 day or less was in the year 1503. So there was not much chance it was going to be yesterday.
Right.
And we were just about to decide it wasn't going to be this time around either. But as you say, about 10, 15 minutes ago now came the white smoke.
Yes, and we will be hearing from the new pope. We'll find out who it is, their name, the name they've taken, and we will hear that the new pope's first blessing from St. Peter's Square here any minute now. You were mentioning how long the conclave normally takes, and some of the earlier 20th century conclaves took much more time. In 1903, in fact, it took 5 days of voting to elect Pope Pius X, and the same number of days it took to elect Pope Pius XI in 1922. So this process is kind of, I guess, speeding up a little bit. It seems like as far as it's been a long time since we had a pope. I guess the last the last pope was 2013.
Well, more than 10 years ago.
So it's been a while since we've been through this process before. Certainly a very a lot. It's funny. Even non-Catholics are very intrigued by this whole process.
Well, they sent each cardinal a copy of Conclave to watch so that they would know what to do once they got inside, right? So it was speedier. That didn't really happen, I don't imagine. So it won't be what we would call in politics an acceptance speech. It will be a blessing, maybe a few words. As you may have heard this last few days, the new pope, is literally getting dressed. And since it could be any one of these people and a longer list, they keep a locked closet with literal robes, small, medium, large.
Oh, wow.
And whatever size the guy's closest to, they plop it on him. They adjust the big hat, which I'm sure has a more formal name than that. I apologize. But they adjust that almost like a baseball cap with a strap, and then he comes out. It's really kind of a fast process. It's hard to imagine being in that position. You're a cardinal 1 minute, and then you're getting dressed to go out on the papal balcony the next. It's about the most sobering thing you can imagine.
Probably one of the most recognizable people in the world besides President of the United States. Yeah,
it's really true. And the name that will be chosen usually is some sort of symbolic name. For example, Francis he picked to symbolize, and what he carried out then, service to the poor and the underserved and the underprivileged and so forth. So we'll get the real name. That's not going to mean much to us. What will mean more, I think, to the public is what
name he's taken.
He picks.
Exactly.
Right.
Fascinating process, and so right now we're just in between where we found out from the white smoke that we do have a new pope, and now the pope has to go through, like you were mentioning, actually getting fitted. So we believe we have. On the telephone with us.
It's Dr. Tony Alonso from the Candler School of Theology
at Emory,
University. Man, thank you for joining us. You and I were just exchanging emails saying, I don't think it's going to be in the next few minutes. After all, boy, we were both wrong.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I kind of started working on another project, and then I got 3 texts in a row, white smoke, white smoke, white smoke, and I knew the call was coming.
All right, what do you think about, I guess the only real clue we have right now is the length and the number of votes this took. It's not as long as a lot of the predictions.
That's right. The phrase that keeps coming to me right now is hurry up and wait. We thought this would take a while. It's here, and now we got to wait for a name. I think you were talking just as I came on that almost every pundit that I heard, including myself, thought this would take a bit. And part of the reason that we thought it would take a bit is so many of these guys are new cardinals. They were appointed under Pope Francis. They don't know each other incredibly well. To get to a 2/3 majority +1 with anyone these days, let alone a bunch of people who haven't spent a lot of time together, we thought would take some time. So it's kind of an incredible moment that they've found consensus under the guidance of spirit and prayer and conversation so quickly. It's a really exciting moment.
How much should we factor into this that a great percentage of these cardinals were personally selected by Francis himself? Might it indicate that they were more inclined, that more of them were more inclined to choose somebody in sort of the Francis direction to continue that into the future?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, Francis chose a lot of these guys. I would say that he wasn't an ideologue in the sense that he didn't look for a checklist of things that people had to abide by to become cardinals. But the thing that he looked for, the kind of thing that bound them together, I felt, watching his choices, that was they all had a deeply pastoral sensibility. He often talked about leaders that, were pastors that had the smell of the sheep on them, meaning they were close with the people in their communities and their dioceses. And so that is certainly an attitudinal thing that I think could bring people consensus and good conversation together that might be a reason for it. It's hard to say exactly, of course, what happens in these moments. Some people thought, well, just because he chose them, we have no idea. We all know lots of people in our lives who were chosen by one person and do something else. But clearly his sensibilities are living on in this consensus moment.
Dr. Alonso, talk about what it's like. We're watching the crowd right now, just the emotion of this whole process and the crowd that's gathered at St. Peter's Square. Just talk a little bit about just what an emotional process this is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've heard that the room that the new pope, after he's asked 2 questions, one, do you accept this role as pope? And then he's asked a second question, what name do you choose? And somewhere in that whole process, he's led to what's called the Room of Tears. And I think that signifies exactly what you're asking. It's an overwhelming moment for the person that's chosen, going from a cardinal one moment to literally in the next moment, just at the end of a vote, you are the Pope in that moment. And the cardinals then pledge their allegiance to you. For all the lay and ordained people gathered outside, it's a real moment of excitement and enthusiasm and also a little bit of uncertainty. How will this next pope guide all of us who are Catholic toward the next century or next decade and beyond? And so we look to the Pope not for a rule book to tell us exactly what to do, but he really sets the tone of how people think about Roman Catholicism.
It's 12:25 at WSB. I'm Chris Chandler with Bill Caiaccio here. This is the sound live from St. Peter's Square. The bells have died away now. The white smoke has given its last puff. But if you are just joining us, a new pope has been selected by that conclave of cardinals in its second day on either the 4th or 5th vote. We'll have to find out. We're now watching the balcony, the famous balcony there at the Vatican. That's when we will get our first glimpse and learn the identity of the new pontiff. And Bill, let's describe what we can see for our radio listeners. It is, about 6:30 in the evening there in Rome. The light is soft. There are tens of thousands of people in that square.
I can't even imagine what it would be like being there at this moment in time.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And for the drama now, just wait until that new pope steps out on that roof. I still see a couple puffs of smoke. I felt terrible for the seagulls up there, Dr. Alonso. They were
the most famous seagulls in the world.
I think they have been this last couple days. Without getting into a lot of details about names and former jobs and so forth, talk to us about who this might be in the next few minutes that we'll see, just in terms of relative ages, geographical regions of the world, philosophical outlooks. Who and what might we see?
Yes, I mean, a cautionary tale about pundits. We were all telling you that this would take a few days.
Yes, indeed.
So be wary of any predictions on my or anyone else's part. That said, I think, there's kind of been consensus I've felt over the last, 10 years or so, especially after John Paul II's very long papacy, 27 years, that's a very long time for one person to helm the direction of the Catholic Church. So I think I would be surprised if it was someone who was on the younger side, and of course in cardinal years, by younger side, I mean, 60 years old, 65 years old.
60 is the youngest of the front runners, isn't that right?
Exactly. So that feels like it would be a very young pope in this moment. So I would imagine someone older than that. I do think that there is general consensus, as we were discussing earlier, because Pope Francis appointed so many of these men, that they share his desire for a listening church that is attentive to the changing needs of the world, which is a shift in posture from some of his predecessors. So those are two things that I think about on the particulars. One person that's been mentioned many times is Cardinal Tagle from the Philippines. He's often called the Asian Francis because of his similar collegial, friendly tone, his pastoral preaching, and he's very beloved in his home country, and he would be the first Asian pope. Another person that's mentioned very frequently is Cardinal Parolin, who's been the Secretary of State under Pope Francis. He's very faithful to Francis's vision, but I would call him maybe a more moderating force, so maybe more of a consensus candidate if there was any kind of division or, hard conversations. So those are two people that come to mind, but I think it's also a year where we could see a real surprise. I mean, when Jorge Bergoglio stood out there several years ago, I was as surprised as anyone, so I'm open to the surprise of the Spirit as well.
So talk about some of the challenges the new Pope is going to have guiding the Catholic Church at this time.
Yeah. One of my favorite kind of quips about the Catholic Church is, here comes everybody. It's such a global church with so many different pockets of ways of expressing Catholicism. We're bound together by the figure of the Pope, by the doctrine of the Church, but the ways people actually express that in their local levels, not only liturgically, but also the way they just live out their Catholicism is vastly different in Africa versus here where I am in Atlanta versus even here in Los Angeles or in other places within the U.S. And so there is diversity within the unity that is the Catholic Church. And I think a lot of people have been talking about the need for someone who's going to bridge those differences. Also, the Pope is a global leader and has a kind of moral authority that very few people have because they oversee people throughout the globe, not just in their home country. And so with all of the conflicts emerging in the world, we've heard from a lot of these men, as well as Pope Francis himself, about the need for greater outspokenness on issues of war and peace.
You're going to hear some music here. A marching band is processing into the square. They are followed by those guards whose very colorful uniforms and plumes you will recognize. 12:30 here at WSB. And, Doctor, how about American Catholics? There is no glossing over that Francis was, and I think especially in this country, a controversial figure.
I think that's right. I think that's right in one way, in people that are kind of heavily online and maybe in some of the leadership of the church. I think on the more parish level, the local level, people tend to give a lot of grace to their pope and not get so caught up and embroiled in the intricacies of the divisions. But you're right, there have been, divisions and questions about Francis' leadership from a range of quarters, even immediately before the conclave by some of the cardinals themselves. Most of those criticisms, I think, are a desire for what they say is greater clarity on doctrinal issues. Again, perhaps a return to a different tone, a way of proceeding. Francis, in many ways, didn't change particular doctrines that concern people. He made two significant changes to doctrine. One was he made the death penalty inadmissible in all cases. I don't think any cardinal there would disagree with that choice. And he raised a particular feast of Mary Magdalene, which was very symbolic for women in the church because he raised it to the same kind of status as the other apostles. But doctrinally, I don't think anyone had a problem with those things. A lot of it has to do these days with tone.
I've got some poll numbers here bearing out what you're saying. This is from a CBS News poll, which was taken over this past weekend after Francis had died. 76% of American Catholics, this found, approve of the direction that Pope Francis took More than 60% of American Catholics in this survey say that the new pope should continue in that direction or even be more progressive. 31% of American Catholics want an American pope. I think they can want on, and probably for a long time. What do you think?
I think that's right. And I think, everyone says there'll never be an American pope, or at least there won't be anytime soon. And part of that's because the United States is such a global superpower that people, especially in the global South, would have real concern about an American also having control of the Catholic Church. It would open up a big can of worms. So I think that's a really unlikely outcome. So we can keep praying for wherever the Spirit's leading the church in that sense.
Talk a little bit about why this process is so fascinating to non-Catholics. This is something that there's nothing like this. The way the Pope is selected, and there's a lot of people that are not Catholic that are still very fascinated in this process.
I'm Presbyterian. Bill is Catholic. I compare it, this is really shallow, to like the coronation, right? Or the Queen's funeral, that kind of thing. I think it's the traditions, right, and the mystery.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm one of, I think, 2 Catholics that work at my particular school of theology at Emory. We're mostly Nicaea Protestants. And every time something like this comes up, they all get very excited, in some ways more excited than the Catholics, who are just like, oh, yeah, this is going on again. And I do think there is something that, maybe has been lost over the course of time in American culture, especially around ritual and ceremony and kind of something that reaches towards something that we can't quite understand. And this really brings all of that back in a very dramatic way, a sense of mystery, a sense of, secrecy even. That kind of just is intriguing. I think that's why the movie Conclave really captured so many people's imaginations. And I think what was remarkable about that film is how much it got right about specific, issues and ways people voted. So it just captures and draws on something in the spirit of people of all backgrounds.
All right, I was going to be not shallow enough to bring up Conclave, but since you mentioned Conclave, the movie, we talked to your colleague, Professor Reynolds, the other day, and every way that I could ask what's going to happen at this conclave came down to some version of, is it like the movie, right? But now that this moment is here, this is a lot more sort of ethereal and meaningful than watching fictionalized version of basically office politics, huh? This is it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, the Conclave, the movie, captures something, very specific about kind of what I would call like a soft politicking that happens among cardinals and kind of people's worst imaginations in many ways about the intrigue behind the scenes. And I'm sure, it captures some of that is true. These are human beings. They would be the first to say it. Pope Francis consistently reminded all of us that he was a sinner himself. So, that's part of the mix. But I think for everyone watching in this moment, like you say, Catholics and non-Catholics alike, I think really do look to the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, for guidance, for ethical and moral guidance, especially in a time when so many places around the country are so divided. I was so stunned rehearing those statistics that you read about American Catholics, 60%, 70%. I mean, these are not all people that vote lockstep in American elections the same way, but they all, a large majority of them have deep affection for the Pope and his vision for the church. And so it's an amazing moment.
One thing is, and you can take these numbers, they sort of bear it out too. I heard one of the pundits on TV say American Catholics often think they're the center of the Catholic universe, right? And just even in terms of sheer numbers, it's not true.
Absolutely. I mean, as a professor at Emory, I'm constantly telling my students, the United States is not at the center of the Catholic universe or the Christian universe, even though it sometimes feels that way. And this I think, is kind of one of the undertold stories. A lot of the stories in American media tend to focus on the divisions among American Catholics, but there are really more interesting and in many ways more important conversations that need to be had between American Catholics and Latin American Catholics, African Catholics, these deeply different cultural contexts, different attitudes towards poverty, wealth, life experiences that really make conversations both beautifully wonderful but also very challenging. And yes, the United States is not the center of the Catholic universe, as we can see today there in St. Peter's Square.
Yeah, Georgia's even less so. As far as the
that's right. Although
of Catholics.
Georgia's an interesting place because in many ways, Atlanta's Catholic population has grown as much as anywhere in the last few decades. I think around 1990 we had about, a couple 100,000 Catholics. Now we have 1.2 or 1.4 million Catholics. So you're seeing a lot of decline in Catholicism, at least the way it's practiced in like the East Coast, and you're seeing real growth in the South, especially in places like Atlanta. A lot of it driven by immigration, but other patterns of people coming to our region.
Let's listen for a moment as the band is marching toward the front, not far from where we will see the new Pope step out on that balcony. That could be just any time. Now let's listen here just for a second. And the crowd you hear, that is tens of thousands of people which have packed that square. It was full this morning. They were polite enough, Bill, to applaud the black smoke even. But then the crowd kind of dwindled. Well, man, they have made it back at tippity top speed.
Yeah, it's an amazing sight, really. I mean, this is history in the making, and it's it's an awe-inspiring sight to see what's going on right now in Vatican City.
1237 with Bill Kaiachi. I'm Chris Chandler here in the WSB 24-hour News Center in Atlanta, and we are bringing you live coverage of the selection of a new Pope, the 267th Pope, I believe. He will be here. You're hearing the band. This will be the last bit of preparation. They're gathering in the square proper just outside the big Vatican entrance there. The new pontiff to step out on the balcony only then. And it'll be, Bill, about, 40 minutes or so, maybe 50 after we first saw that white smoke. We'll find out who it is, what name they have chosen, joined by Dr. Antonio Alonso from the Candler School at Emory University. I guess probably not much, but anything else we might be able to glean from this first brief appearance?
Yeah, it's interesting because in this first moment, when the new Pope is escorted onto the balcony and they say those famous Latin words, Habemus Papam, we have a Pope, and everyone cheers, the Pope, really, all he does is offer a very brief blessing. It's called the Urbi et Orbi blessing. It just means for the church in the world. So it's a blessing on all the people across the world in this particular moment, acknowledging his role as leader. But, there's not much else, you can learn from that brief blessing usually. That said, I will say there are two major things we learned when Pope Francis was elected that communicated a lot, even despite very few words. One was the choice of his name. I think you were discussing that earlier. What particular name the person is chosen can communicate a lot. It can be ambiguous at times, but one probably unlikely possibility, for example, if someone said that they were Pope Francis II, that would communicate a lot. And if they pick some other saint name, that we might be able to read something into that. But the other was, when he appeared on that balcony, he has, the choice of what he can wear in terms of elaborate regalia. And he eschewed much of the elaborate regalia that had been used for many, many years and just wore that very simple white cassock when he stood out there for the first time. And that, in many ways, looking back especially, communicated a lot about his vision for the church. And then finally, his first words were not some dramatic Latin or even Italian phrase, proclamation. They were simply buonasera, good evening. And I think it really reflected, even that very little moment, so much about what was to come.
And Dr. Alonso, what happens then after all this pomp and circumstance? He comes out, he makes his first blessing. Where does he go? What happens next as far as his job? Where does he go out and to travel the world? What does he do exactly?
Yeah, so immediately within the next week or so, a mass will take place for a public called inauguration of the Pope. So that they say that needs to happen in a, quote, timely fashion. So I would imagine we'd see that in the next few days. So preparations would immediately begin for that, and one would presume the Pope would want some input on some of how those preparations go. And it's, what should happen, what does happen can be often very different. For example, Pope Francis wanted to return back to the place where all of the cardinals were staying to pay his hotel bill. That was not something that typically would happen immediately after elected pope. Typically, you'd be escorted back to your new residence. But he made many changes like that, and we'll see what the next person does as well.
Well, how difficult is it going to be? Francis lived in the small apartment and not the more regal papal apartment. How difficult is it going to be maybe to go back to more of the pomp now?
Yeah, I was thinking about that myself. As a person who likes a little bit of luxury here and there, it would be a hard thing to want to go back to this tiny apartment. But then also to think about what is this communicating to the global stage, to go exactly like you just said, to go from this needs to be a church concerned and centered on the needs of the poor, and what every choice we make as leaders reflects about that. I think you're right. It would be a hard thing to return to.
The crowd is falling much quieter here. Let's listen just for a second. And the cameras here of the various streams we are getting are really focusing in now on that balcony.
Yeah, this could happen any minute now.
And this may be some kind of fanfare. All right, Doctor, let me make sure. Can you stay with us?
I can stay for a little longer, yeah.
Okay, yeah, we got you in a rush here when the smoke started. We had almost given up on the smoke, and we appreciate it very much. So if you need to go, just say so. Please do.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
How much does the geographic factor maybe factor into the decision that these cardinals have made? For example, selecting an African pope would make not only a tremendous statement, but would be immediately tremendously popular in a region of the world which has in itself a very large Catholic population.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think geography is determinative. I don't think they're going and choosing a pope based solely on where they're from and letting that be a limiting factor. But I do think in places where the Catholic Church is growing very rapidly, to center, in many ways, the person that becomes the pope, it recenters the concerns of that particular country. The fact that Pope Francis was from Latin America deeply shaped everything he did. It shaped his theology. It shaped his sensibility. Yeah. I myself am a Cuban American, and I really understood on a deeper level so much of what he did because it felt very familiar to me from my own kind of Latin American grandparents. So to shift kind of the power center, the way even to think about liturgy and devotion can really be important for where this person comes from.
1243 at WSB, Bill Caiaccio and Chris Chandler here. There is a new pope, and we await the sights of him. We'll find out who it is, then what name he has taken. All right, we're going to give this a shot. Now, Father Michael Collins, who joined us on Atlanta's Morning News just after the death of Francis, is a father and an author based in Dublin, but he is standing in St. Peter's Square right now. We're not too sure how bad the background noise might be, but Father, just tell us, what's it like there?
Oh, Chris, it's a marvelous experience. I have been here for a little while and saw the smoke emerging from the roof of the Sistine Chapel, which means that the conclave just began yesterday with one vote in the afternoon, and there were 2 votes this morning, and then probably one further vote in the afternoon, the first of 2 at which the new pope has been elected. Now, I'm standing here in this marvelous 17th century square designed by Bernini in front of the wonderful facade by Carlo Materno, and it's in the center of this facade, which is draped with crimson velvet windows, that in a short while, I don't know, it could be 10, 15 minutes, the Cardinal Deacon is going to come out with the words, the historic words, Habemus Papam, Annuncio Vobis Gaudium Magnum. I announce to you a great joy, we have a pope. So this is a ritual that's been going on for hundreds of years. The early election, and just keep in mind, this new pope is the 267th pope in an unbroken line of 2,000 years, going back to the Apostle Peter, who died in Rome in the mid-60s. So that's a long time ago, virtually 2,000 years. So this new pope, we don't know who he is. You're quite right, we don't know who he is. But one thing we do know already is that he garnered the support of all the cardinals. He just needed 89 of the 133 voting cardinals. We may never know whether he superseded that number of 89. It's more than likely he did. How far over it he went, we'll probably never know. But the important thing is the Church now has a new spiritual leader to 1.4 billion Catholics across the globe from every culture. These cardinals came from 70 countries. The youngest is 45 and the eldest is 79. So as to who it is, it's anybody's guess. Some people are hoping for an African pope, which would be very important because Africa is one of the places where Christianity is growing very strongly. And if I could give Ireland a plug, we were responsible 100 years ago and more for sending thousands of missionaries, priests, brothers, nuns, lay people, catechists, deacons, to go over to Africa from little Ireland, a tiny population of just a few million, to bring the Christian faith there. So we could be very proud if we got an African pope. We may not get it this time. Is it going to be a Filipino? Is it going to be another Italian? We're just in the waiting area now. We just don't know. But we're certainly expecting the windows over the Basilica
Very soon.
Loggia to open shortly. Then we'll know.
Very soon. Bill and I are very jealous of you being there because on the various video feeds we have there, it looks like a beautiful, beautiful evening. Those tens of thousands of people there.
It's amazing.
And you
You're
too.
right. And
We'll
actually,
never forget it, I'm sure.
I'm looking down the Via della Conciliazione, the main street that leads to the square, and there are people literally running, trying to here. The guard of the Swiss, the band of the Swiss Guard has taken its place on the podium. The Carabinieri, which are the Italian state police, they've also taken place. They're all dressed in their ceremonial garb. There are three bands here actually on the podium. And when the new Pope appears to make his greeting and first blessing, well, then they'll strike up the Vatican anthem and the Italian anthem. Because remember, Vatican City and Rome are in the heart of Italy. And you can imagine the majority of the people here are Italian. They're just looking with great interest. And because there are two strong contenders, Cardinal Parolin and Cardinal Pizzaballa, both of whom are Italian, they're just hoping, we're all a little bit territorial when it comes to this. They're just hoping that it'll be one of theirs. But, you know, it doesn't matter because whoever it is, it's true. Some people are saying, how could anybody fit into the shoes of Pope Francis? Well, it's black orthopedic shoes. How could anybody fit into his place? The thing is, you know, nobody expects him to be followed, just in the same way nobody expected John Paul II to be followed after a 26-and-a-half-year papacy. So the new Pope, whoever he is, he just comes in with his own character. And the most important thing Catholics believe is he's not just a Pope. He's simply somebody who's responsible. If you draw the line back down through 267 popes to St. Peter, to pass on the Christian faith, which he received while he was living with Jesus. So, if you like, it's an amazing line. And I must say, yesterday morning, I was from celebrating Mass in St. Peter's with the Cardinals, and it was celebrated over the tomb, the putative tomb of St. Peter. So, when you think that the bones of St. Peter are most likely underneath the altar, the high altar of St. Peter's, and then this is the Pope who's following in his place 2,000 years later. If you have any sense of history, you'll be absolutely fascinated and drawn by, you know, when I mentioned there's 1.4 billion Catholics, of course everybody's different shades, it's like the colours of the rainbow. Everybody's different shades of interest and attachment and allegiance. Some are very strong and proud and depend on their faith. Others are very happy to float along in the stream of life. But it is lovely standing here in the Basilica, in front of the Basilica, looking at all the national flags, listening to all the languages spoken across the globe. And there's a wonderful sense of universality, because after all, Catholic comes from the Greek word meaning universal or global. So this is a great example of the global church. And in fact, I'm just looking at your own American, Sean Patrick O'Malley. He's a Franciscan, formerly Archbishop of Boston, and he's just wandered into the square. Well, I wouldn't say wandered, but he's just come into the square a few minutes ago, and he's standing with the crowd with a few other over 80 cardinals. I mean, 80 by age, because as you know, the voting process requires voting cardinals to be under 80, which makes sense because, you know, these are the men who are going to take responsibility. I see Cardinal Verl is standing close to Cardinal O'Malley. So you have two American cardinals here, and I'm sure there's more as well if I can get up my magnifying glass and spot them.
So we're a lot of anticipation building, Father, as we wait to see the new Pope. Tell us a little bit more about the emotions at St. Peter's Square after the white smoke and as we wait for the new Pope to come out.
At the moment, the new Pope is being greeted by the cardinals, because one of the parts of the process is after the actual election, the Cardinal Dean must go to the candidate and say, do you accept? Because it's possible that the new Pope would say no, who knows. But if that's the case, then they have to go back to the drawing board. That obviously didn't, well, I completely doubt it happened today. So I imagine what happens now is that the cardinals have begun what's called their act of obedience. It's an old-fashioned word for an act of obedience and loyalty given to the new Pope, which is important because he depends on the uniformity and the, not the uniformity, I should say the unity, not uniformity, the unity of all the cardinals to help him, because he's not alone, he's working with the cardinals. And indeed, one of the criticisms of the late Pope was that he had a group of 9 cardinals, I should say, who helped him on a day-to-day basis. And as a result, the other 250 cardinals rarely came together for a global meeting. So I think the new Pope will be under a certain amount of pressure to re-establish the College of Cardinals as a regular annual or biannual consultative body.
12:52, Chris Chandler, Bill Caiaccio here in Atlanta, joined by Father Michael Collins right there live in St. Peter's Square, author. You've heard him on Atlanta's Morning News helping us figure out what's next, each step here as the death of Pope Francis gave way to the conclave, which is now finished. If you're just joining us, we have a new Pope and we await his appearance on the Vatican balcony. All of this, how far back does some of this tradition go? Father, the colorful uniforms there, the balcony appearance, all that. How old, even ancient, I would ask, is some of this stuff?
Well, again, they go back to before America became America, put it that way. It's been a tradition for hundreds upon hundreds of years, in particular for the Pope to be presented to the people, because that's a very important part of the right of election, because if the people are not informed and not presented with the new Pope, they can't be expected to accept him. So this, what we're living through during these minutes, and it will conclude very shortly, is the weight of the people. And I'm going back, I was here in the piazza both for the election of Benedict and Francis, and I remember Pope Francis took us by surprise when he said he wanted to pray for Pope Benedict, who just abdicated, and then he said, let's pray for him, and there was a moment's silence. And then he said, I'd like, before I give you my blessing, I'd like to ask for your blessing and your prayers for me as I begin the new ministry. And that was, such a beautiful thing that nobody expected. It was a lovely way of turning the tables. And I remember the silence at that point lasted probably a minute or two, but it seemed like eternity. It was really something beautiful. And again, once more, it expresses the fact that this isn't a political election. It's simply the selection and the election of a spiritual father for the Catholic Church.
What's it going to be like for the new Pope? He goes from being a relatively obscure cardinal to now being one of the most famous people in the world. What's that going to be like?
Well, you'll have to ask him. I'll try and get his phone number and you can give him a call.
Please, we can get an interview.
It'd be a great interview. Well, that's what Francis used to do, as you know. He loved the telephone, and he did a little ritual that on a Sunday afternoon, Rome is usually reasonably quiet on a Sunday afternoon. Everybody takes the day off, and that was his day for phoning his sister, Maria Elena, phoning his family, phoning friends. But he also made random phone calls in the evening to people if he heard that they were sick, if they had a problem. So who knows, maybe this man is going to be a man of surprises as well. I would say one thing, though. He has an enormous role to fill after Francis. There's no doubt about that. He's an enormous challenge. But you also have to say that Francis achieved a lot during his 12-year papacy. And I think probably at the very end, when he was so ill and he was reduced to a wheelchair over the last 2.5 years, almost 3 years, also having suffered a bout of cancer, people became very much affectionate towards him. They were very, very moved by his continuing perseverance. And probably stubbornness in trying to continue to carry on his role. He could have easily abdicated, but clearly he chose to keep going as best he could.
Whoever this is that we will be introduced to in a few minutes comes into the papacy at a really difficult, troubled time for the entire world. Just within this last 72 hours, we have a third hot war brewing. Whoever this is coming into a time of tremendous responsibility.
That's very true. And actually, Pope Francis said about a year and a half ago, he said World War III is already breaking out across the globe in little spots. And there's something true about that as well, because there's so much hatred, but I just can't understand. Why would nations fight against other nations over a plot of land? Now, okay, I'm lucky I don't have to fight for my citizenship, but, you know, it must be immensely difficult for neighbors, because after all these wars are carried out by neighbors. If you look at, well, I won't mention them to be politically correct, but if you look at any of the wars that are carrying on at the moment, they're all next-door neighbors. Their borders all touch each other. And you just think to yourself, look, get a mediator in, give and concede, and then take and be grateful. You know, it's very, very difficult. But that's one of the big challenges that the Pope is going to have to do, because that's at the heart of the gospel. You know, go make disciples of all nations, go and help everybody. And if you look at the church's charitable outreach through hospitals, hostels, orphanages, all these things, you know, they try their best, as best they can, to help people across the globe.
Father, if you could stand by just for a second here, let me tell the audience that you're listening to live coverage of the ascendancy of a new pope. The white smoke billowed from that Vatican chimney just a little just a little less than an hour ago. It is 12:58 at WSB.
WSB Atlanta, WSB FM, and HD1 Doraville. 95.5 WSB, Atlanta's News and Talk.
So in the News Center here in Atlanta, I'm Chris Chandler with Bill Caiaccio. We are talking live with Father Michael Collins, author based in Dublin, Ireland, which you possibly can deduce from the accent, sir. You probably think we have an accent. We can hear yours a little bit. You're in St. Peter's Square. Let's listen here to the sound from the square. The crowd has grown some quieter, I'd say. That is, Bill, that is tens upon tens of thousands of people there.
Yeah, that does sound a lot quieter than before. There's just a lot of build-up anticipation right now as we wait to meet the new Pope.
Father, tell us what we are waiting for here, and it could be any minute.
It could be any minute, yes. I'd say we're waiting for the end of the act of obedience from the cardinals to the new Pope in the Sistine Chapel. That's a chapel which was built 500 years ago and decorated, of course, by Michelangelo and some of the great Renaissance artists. So what we're waiting for is the new Pope to make his way across the facade, the inside of the facade of St. Peter's. He'll walk down through the Hall of Benedictions. He probably will call into the Pauline Chapel, which is a chapel adjacent to the Sistine Chapel, to pray for a few moments in silence, maybe recollect himself. He will have changed into his white garments as Pope, which are the traditional color that the Pope wears. And then he has to do something which must be very daunting, and that's to step out into this balcony on the 16th century facade and greet the people from across the globe. And it's going to be, I'd say, emotional for him. One thing that strikes me important is Italian is the working language of the Vatican, so he will need to be relatively fluent in Italian. If it's an Italian, as the Italians hope, well, then he's home and dry. If it's an African cardinal, Filipino cardinal, a European cardinal, they're already at a very slight disadvantage unless they've got pretty good Italian. Although I have to say, I have several African friends, and they leave me in the happy place with their knowledge of languages. Some of them are extraordinarily competent. But so that's what we're doing. The crowds are growing all the time because the bells have been rung. The bell of St. Peter's was silent. It's only rung at the death and the election of a pope, and on Christmas morning and Easter morning. They're the 4 times when that huge 25-ton bell is rung. And it's actually rung by hand by a gentleman on the inside of the bell, believe it or not. So if you're near television and later on and you see that ginormous bell, have pity on him, because unless he's wearing great mufflers, he'll be deafened. Anyway, that's the bell which is it's already broken the conclave, so that's how we knew, even before we saw the smoke. Once the bell started tolling, we knew that there was a new pope. And as I say, the piazza just exploded. It's a little bit quieter now, but believe me, as soon as that window opens, I'll be saying goodbye. In fact, I won't have a chance of saying goodbye, because you'll be deafened, and you'll just you'll put down the telephone quicker than I will.
No doubt. I tell you, it occurs to me to ask, you could have watched this from your living room in Dublin and had a lot less walking and it'd be a lot less noisy. What made you decide that you wanted to be there yourself today?
Well, I studied history and archaeology as a student, and I taught at the American University of Rome. And then to be here, being a priest also is something that makes you a little bit closer to the, we'd say the church as an institution. And I've just got a great sense of history, always been interested. I lived here for 10 years, and Rome is only 2 hours away, a little over 2 hours by plane. So as soon as I knew that there was the possibility of a conclave, I hopped on a plane, came over, and I'm catching up with all my friends. And I'm actually relieved that the election is today, because I'm here till next Thursday. That means I can go and have lots of pastas and pizzas with all my pals across the city.
I think you should do it.
No doubt. So is this your
otherwise
first?
Otherwise I'd be on conclave watch for the next week,
Right.
which will be a little bit long.
Is this the first time you've done this? It's been a while since they had chosen a new pope. Is this the first time for you?
No, I was here for Francis and I was here for Benedict.
Wow.
I was here in the square, so it was really wonderful. So third conclave in my 65 years. So yeah, it's good, it's great, it's historic. And I must say it's wonderful because I also do a little broadcasting to help people at home in Ireland. And people like to have things explained to them, because otherwise if you look at the TV screen or you listen on the radio, you don't really know what's happening. But when somebody takes the trouble to explain a little bit more, it kind of comes to life. And I enjoy that as well. So it's a wonderful experience. But as I say, anybody with a sense of history would be very interested to follow this.
Well, Father, we are very grateful for you being with us here. Let's, Bill and I, take a second here to kind of recap everything that has happened yesterday afternoon and today. If you're just tuning in for the 1 o'clock news and Eric Erickson, this is live coverage from St. Peter's Square and our news center here in Atlanta as a new pope has been selected. One vote yesterday. Bill saw the first black smoke.
Yes, about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, our time.
They resumed in the middle of the night, our time, overnight. There were 2 votes this morning. We got black smoke. I think it was about 10 minutes of 6. As I say, there was a huge crowd already. I guess it was, what is that, about, close to noon, right, in Rome there. So there was a huge crowd. They applauded politely, even at the black smoke, and then dispersed. They went back into the conclave behind the not only locked doors. We don't know whether they had 1 vote or 2 votes before we saw that white smoke billow out. It was right after, I guess.
Noon, yeah, it was right after 12 o'clock our time. Yep.
Right after noon, and then those bells started pealing. It was really something, Bill.
Well, according to Father Michael, you said the bells ring first, right?
That's right, yeah. They try and do it contemporaneously with the smoke.
Okay.
But, that's not so easy. But the bells started tolling. As soon as we heard that and the smoke coming out, it was clear. Funnily enough, this morning I was here for the black smoke, and then just before I was leaving, I waited around about 10 minutes, there was suddenly a last gasp from the chimney and a little flutter of white smoke came out. But I think that was just the very end of the chemicals that burned itself out, and there's a roar from the crowd, and everybody surged forward, but of course, it didn't last very long.
I have a huge screen here where it just is only the chimney that I had going all morning here. And every time a little willow white cloud would pass behind that chimney and my eye would light on it, I was like, this is it. But it was not. Yeah, but it was not.
Here we go. No.
It was not
that's true.
So we had here we had decided almost.
This part.
Go ahead, please.
This part is almost a little frustrating because We know there's a new pope. We know he's vested, probably received the obedience of the cardinals. It's now 10 after 7 local time. What time is it with you, Chris?
It is almost 10 minutes past 1 in the afternoon.
Okay, so we know that the conclave broke about an hour ago or more, so we would expect in the next, I'd say, about 10 minutes for the, that's a guess, 10 or 15 minutes for the window to open. Then we'll be informed who the new pope is in Latin, which is interesting because Latin is still the universal language of the church. Even though Italian is the working language, Latin is still the language, if you like, which unites everybody across the globe, in particular Europeans, because all our languages developed from Latin. So again, it's going to be very, very interesting. And again, you know, the challenges the Pope is going to have, but the first few days are going to be the honeymoon days, and he's going to probably begin his ministry with a mass of inauguration, possibly next Sunday week, not this Sunday because they couldn't get ready in time, probably the following Sunday. And that mass will take place in St. Peter's Square when, again, once more, we expect an enormous crowd. Also, you will probably have quite a number of heads of state. I know President Trump came to Pope Francis' funeral, so we'd expect maybe not as many heads of state, but certainly a lot of government representatives representing the almost 200 countries across the globe. And another interesting point of this, and you know, it's worth thinking about, is that the church is one of the very few cross-global institutes which has very little vested interest. There isn't a territory as such. So if you think of any country, the United Nations or any group like that, they all have vested interests. The Catholic Church, being cross-global, hasn't got interest as such. It's just got interest in serving humanity. Now, a cynic might say, no, they're interested in brainwashing and all of that. But I wouldn't really buy that. For 2,000 years, people haven't been in the job of brainwashing. It's just sharing a faith. And it's one of the large faiths of the world. Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Shintoism, you know, you can go down through a list of great religions, and Catholicism as the central branch of Christianity is important in that role of religions.
It's 1:08 here at WSB. I'm going to go out on a limb and speak for Bill and say that your Latin is probably better than both of ours.
Yes, I'm going to need a translation, Father.
Yeah, tell us about this traditional phrase in Latin, which will be spoken from that balcony, the history and the significance.
You want me to say it, Chris?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, the term is this, it starts, Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum, I announce to you a great joy, habemus papam, we have a pope, and then he'll continue, reverendissimum dominum, dominum nostrum, Romanis ante ecclesiae catholicae. He is a cardinal of the Holy Roman Catholic Church, who has taken the name, qui sibium posuit, who's taken the name, and then he'll give the, first of all, he'll say the name of whatever the cardinal is first, and then give his surname at the end of that, and then he'll say qui sibium posuit, who's taken upon himself the name, and then we'll find out what the name is. In fact, everybody's fascinated. Will it be Francis II? Will it be John Paul III? Will it be a name like Benedict XVI? Will it be Clement the 18th? You know, there's so many names over 2,000 years to choose from. Or, like Francis, would he go and choose a completely new name? And the name, the tradition of choosing a new name this evening goes back to the early 6th century when one of the priests of Rome was elected pope, but his name was Mercury. Well, you know, Mercury is a pagan god, so they didn't think that was a good idea having Pope Mercury. So he was elected in 533, if I remember correctly. I'm not that old, but it's around that time. And he was elected. So he chose the name John II because John I had been Pope just a few years earlier. And from then, they mostly have changed their names. But a handful have not changed their name. One amusing story, which I think will your listeners will find enjoyable is, as you know, in 1492, Columbus crossed the Atlantic.
Sailed the ocean blue. Bill and I learned that in school. Yes, indeed.
Exactly. Well, of course, you probably know that St. Brendan of Galway in Ireland had already crossed the ocean blue, discovered Newfoundland, and then sailed home, which is what you do. Anyway, so Christopher Columbus sails over, and you know the rest of the story. And at that time, he came back to Spain, and he gave the first gold of the Americas to the Spanish Pope, who was Rodrigo Borgia, who was Pope Alexander VI. Now, he was one of the worst popes in history, completely corrupt and immoral, or amoral. And then when he died in 1503, and there's always been a question whether he was poisoned or not, there's a question mark over that still. When he was succeeded by Giuliano della Rovere, who was of the della Rovere family, Giulio became Julius II, and he kept the name. Now, part of the reason was because Rodrigo Borgia, the Pope at the time of the discovery of the New World, had taken the name Alexander after Alexander the Great. He was interested in Catholic.
Oh, here we go, I believe.
Window.
Yes, indeed, sir.
Window.
Tell us what you can see.
I'll let you know the window's opening, and the Cardinal Dean is stepping out onto the balcony. The Cardinal Deacon. So I'll have to let you listen because I won't be able to speak during this. Have a listen if you can hear on the telephone.
Yes, indeed. Stand by. I'm going to actually pull the father down here and bring up my live feed from the Vatican. The audio is better. Let us listen.
Annuncio vobis gaudium magnum. Habemus papam. Eminentissimum, ac reverendissimum Dominum, Dominum Robertum Franciscum, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae, Cardinalem Prevost, qui sibi nomen imposuit Leonem decimum quartum.
Cardinals now at the window, and they're dropping the ceremonial drape over the balcony railing there. You heard the traditional Latin, and we're just about to discover the identity of the new pope. Cardinal Robert Prevost. He will choose for himself the name Leo the 14th. Pope Leo the 14th. And we will hear very briefly from him momentarily. Quickly, he is a key church official. He has a big part in picking bishops around the world. He was born in Chicago. 69 years old. Let's listen. Born in Chicago.
He would be the first American-born pope.
Lived and worked in Peru for many years. Dual citizenship, but I think that we will be able to claim him, right?
Yeah.
As an American, the first American pope. We're awaiting here the official introduction. We will stop talking here the instant there is any sound. But just long enough, Bill, to say what a sight.
Yeah, crazy, huh?
Pope Leo the 14th. Vatican aides making what are pretty clearly the last preparations there at the railing of the balcony. They've closed the large red drapes again. We heard the traditional Latin, the announcement that there is a new pope. Took about an hour, is that right? A little less,
Yeah.
a little more between the smoke and this introduction. There are tens of thousands of people in St. Peter's Square. There are kids who have climbed lampposts, flags waving. I see a few tears there in that crowd. Father Collins, who was very kind to speak with us live from St. Peter's Square, describing the scene there as both a beautiful evening and a joyous evening there. Certainly so. What we will hear next is to be very brief. It is not a service. It is not a homily. It's not even really a statement. Will be a very brief blessing from the man who was known for all of his life as Robert Francis Prevost. Started this day as Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost.
Now Pope Leo.
And at the end of the day here, about 7:20 p.m. there in Rome, in Vatican Square, Pope Leo the 14th. And we're waiting for him to step forward right now. And as Dr. Alonso mentioned earlier, one of the first gleanings we might get of his outlook is how much of the regalia he decides to come forward in right away. Pope Francis went for a more austere first appearance, and that kind of thing, of course, marked his papacy. So we will see here.
And Pope Leo, 69, is that what you said earlier, Chris? 69
years old. So he was born in Chicago, was a missionary in Peru for many years, has served several official functions within the church, and essentially what I guess in civilian life we would call worked his way up. And he is now officially the prefect of the Dicastery for Bishops. I possibly said that wrong. Catholic Caaccio.
What?
Dicastery. We'll skip over it. A position that oversees the selection of bishops worldwide. It's right there. All right, we don't know. Probably relates to diocese in some fashion, but he has worked for most of his career in Latin America. A dual citizen, American, Peruvian. I guess there will probably be some discussion of whether this makes him the first full-fledged American pope. He's certainly the first ever to have been born in this country. Every expert that we have spoken to, including on this coverage barely an hour ago with our Emory expert, poo-pooed the idea that there would be an American pope anytime in the next half century or century.
I actually did hear his name on one of the TV shows before the conclave started, mention his name as if there was going to be any American selected, it would be him. And he said he's the least American of all the American cardinals, if that makes any sense.
So potentially a compromise.
Right.
So the cardinals didn't, and of course we may never know exactly why, but the idea of the first African pope seemed an appealing prospect for various reasons, geographical, political, just sheer numbers of Catholics in that part of the world. Age might have been a factor. These candidates ranged in age from 60 was the youngest. I think, was it 79 was the oldest?
So he's right in the middle
of the front runners. So he is right in the middle there. Of course, the big question will be his philosophy.
Right.
What will mark his papacy? And the huge question is the extent to which he will continue Francis's legacy of promoting social justice, serving the poor, all this kind of thing, to really, the ultimate extent, and showing at least some, in some cases too liberal for some Catholics, leanings on some of the social issues. Allowing blessings for gay marriages, for example, was hugely controversial. That was one of the discussions that we were sure was going on behind the locked doors, was on some of these social issues. And, we'll have to find out as the day goes along. I would venture to say 99% of everybody listening to this right now was unfamiliar with the new Pope, Leo XIV. So we'll learn more about him as the day goes along. But, all of that can follow, not to distract or detract from this very historic moment. I mean, you think about 2,000 years, 267 times.
Right.
It's not a lot. Not really.
No. Yeah, I mean, it's what a life-changing experience. I mean, like you said, you go from being one of
in the morning.
You're just an obscure cardinal who not many, outside of the Catholic Church, probably not many people knew who he was, but now he's going to be viewed around the world. Everyone's going to know who he is after this moment when he steps out onto the balcony.
And I believe this is it. Let's listen. Live from Vatican City, the introduction to the world of Pope Leo XIV. He stepped onto the balcony.
La pace sia con tutti voi. Fratelli, sorelle carissimi, questo è il primo saluto del Cristo risorto, il buon pastore che ha dato la vita per il gregge di Dio. Anch'io vorrei che questo saluto di pace entrasse nel vostro cuore, raggiungesse le vostre famiglie, a tutte le persone, ovunque siano.
Pick up the English translation for you.
Fratelli, sorelle carissimi.
Dearest brothers and sisters,
Questo è il primo saluto del Cristo risorto.
this is the first
Il buon
greetings
pastore
of the
che ha dato
resurrected
la
Christ,
vita per il gregge di Dio.
the Good Shepherd who has given up his
vorrei
life
che questo
for God.
saluto di
And
pace
I should also like
entrasse
this
nel
greeting
vostro
of
cuore,
peace
raggiungesse
to enter
le
our
vostre
hearts
famiglie,
and
a
your
tutte le
families
persone,
and to all
ovunque
those
siano,
people, wherever they
a
are,
tutti i popoli, a tutta
all
la terra.
peoples
La
throughout the
pace
world.
sia con voi.
Peace be with you.
Questa è la pace di Cristo risorto.
This is the
Una
peace of the
pace
resurrected Christ,
disarmata, una pace disarmante, umile e
a
perseverante.
humble and perseverant peace which comes from God, God who loves us all
Incondizionalmente.
unconditionally.
Ancora conserviamo nei nostri orecchi
Let
quella
us
voce debole,
keep
ma
in our
sempre
ears
coraggiosa di
the
Papa Francesco,
weak voice
che benediva
of
Roma
Pope Francis that blesses Rome will not prevail.
nelle mani di Dio.
We are all in the hands of God.
Pertanto, senza paura,
Therefore, without
uniti,
fear,
mano nella mano con
united,
Dio,
hand in hand with God and amongst ourselves, let us go forward.
siamo discepoli di Cristo.
We are the disciples of
Cristo
Christ.
ci precede.
Christ goes
Il
before
mondo
us.
ha bisogno della sua
The world
luce.
needs his light.
L'umanità necessita di lui come
Humanity
il ponte
needs him
per essere raggiunta da Dio
like
e
the
dal
bridge
suo amore.
to God and his love.
Aiutateci anche voi, poi gli uni gli altri, a
Help us
costruire i ponti
and
con
all
il dialogo,
others to
con l'incontro,
build bridges
unendoci
with
tutti
dialogue,
per essere un
with
solo
meeting,
popolo,
to be
sempre
one
in pace.
common people,
Grazie a
living
Papa
always in
Francesco.
peace. Thank you to Pope Francis.
Voglio ringraziare anche tutti
I should also like to
i
thank
confratelli cardinali
all
che
my
hanno scelto me
cardinal brethren
per essere
who have chosen me
successore di Pietro,
to be the
di
successor
camminare
of Peter
insieme a voi
and
come
to
Chiesa unita,
walk with you
cercando
as a
sempre
united
la pace,
church,
la giustizia,
always seeking
cercando
peace
sempre
and justice,
lavorare come
seeking
uomini
to
e
work
donne fedeli
with
a Gesù Cristo.
men and women who are faithful to Jesus Christ, without fear, to proclaim the gospel, to be missionaries.
Sono un figlio di Sant'Agostino.
I am a son of St.
Agostiniano.
Augustinian.
Che ha detto,
Augustine who said,
con voi sono cristiano e per
with
voi
you I am a
vescovo.
Christian,
In
and
questo
for
senso
you a
possiamo
bishop.
tutti
And I think in that sense we
camminare
can all walk
verso
together
quella patria
to that
che
homeland, that home which God has prepared for us.
Alla Chiesa
to the Church
di Roma, un
of
saluto
Rome,
speciale.
a very special greeting.
Dobbiamo cercare insieme come essere una chiesa missionaria.
We have to seek together to be a missionary church, a church that builds bridges and dialogue, always ready to accept, like this great piazza with its arms. We have to show our charity, presence, and be in dialogue with love. And I'd also like to say a greeting in Spanish to all those who and particularly to my dearest beloved diocese in Peru, where a faithful people accompanied their bishop to share their faith with him, and who has done so much to be a faithful church. To all you, brothers and sisters of Rome, of Italy, of the entire world, we must be a synodal church, one which goes forward and which always seeks peace, charity, and to be close to those who suffer. Today,
il giorno della supplica alla Madonna di Pompei.
This is the day of the supplication to the Madonna of Pompeii. Our Mother Mary always wanted to accompany us and be near us, to help us with her love. And I should like to, therefore, pray together with you. Let us pray for this new mission, for the entire Church and for peace in the world. And let us ask for this special grace from Mary, our God. Hail Mary, full of grace. You are blessed amongst all women, and blessed be the fruit of your womb. Holy Mary, pray for us sinners, and be present at the hour of our death. Amen.
Concede l'indulgenza. Il Santo Padre Leone,
the Holy Father Leo, to all faithful who are present and who receive his blessing through radio, television, and other media communications. We pray to the Almighty that He keeps the present Pope long in his post to preserve the Church throughout the world.
Sancti Apostoli Petrus et Paulus, de quorum potestate et auctoritate confidimus, ipsi intercedat pro nobis ad Dominum. Amen. Precibus et meritis Beate Mariae semper Virginis, Beati Michaelis Arcangeli, Beati Ioannis Baptiste, et Sanctorum Apostolorum Petri et Pauli et omnium sanctorum, misereatur vestri omnipotens Deus, et dimissis omnibus peccatis vestris, perducat vos Iesus Christus ad vitam aeternam. Indulgentiam, absolutionem et remissionem omnium peccatorum vestrorum, spatium vere et fructuose penitentiae, cor semper penitens, et emendationem vitae, gratiam et consolationem Sancti Spiritus, et finalem perseverantiam in bonis operibus tribuat vobis omnipotens et misericors Dominus. Amen. Et benedictio Dei omnipotentis, Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti descendat super vos et maniat semper.
1:37 at WSB. You're listening live from St. Peter's Square. Pope Leo XIV has just finished his brief remarks there and his first blessing, the first blessing he has issued as Pope Leo XIV before an absolutely adoring crowd of tens and tens of thousands of people. He's waving to them now. And Bill, what the radio audience cannot see that we can hear on our various video feeds, people in that crowd have broken out the American flags.
Yeah, he was definitely born in America, in the United States. As you mentioned, he was born in Chicago, but it seems like he's very Peruvian. So that it's kind of, you mentioned he's a dual citizen, correct? Is that what you said earlier?
Dual Peruvian American citizen.
Okay, so yeah, so I don't know, you could call him totally American, but yes, he is, I believe, the first American-born pope in history, correct?
This is the Vatican anthem. And Pope Leo XIV still standing at that balcony. Cardinals all along the sides there, still in their red regalia. They started this morning. Not sure whether we would even have a pope elected today, but just after noon, our time this afternoon, the white smoke came forth from that closely watched Vatican chimney. The bells there at St. Peter's tolled. I see nothing in this crowd, Bill, but smiles. Nothing but smiles and waves. There are guys there in suits and there are kids climbing light posts.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see some of the children in the crowd on their parents' shoulders to get a better view of the new pope.
Pope has now departed the balcony, gone back inside. One imagines breathing a severe sigh of relief after all of this. Let's give this a shot here. I'm not sure if it's too loud, but let's try to go back live to St. Peter's Square now and talk again to Father Michael Collins, who has been gracious enough to join us. Let me first ask, can you hear us, sir?
I can, Chris, and what a pleasure to have witnessed the election of the first American Pope.
Tell us what it was like. Tell us.
So proud.
Tell us what it was like.
Well, it's absolutely amazing. I have to say, when he came out, I just got a glimpse of his face. I've seen him many times before. I never noticed him. I always thought he had a beautiful smile. But when he came out in the balcony, he just was so composed, so relaxed. He took his time. As he mentioned himself, he's an Augustinian friar. That means he comes from the Augustinian order. They're one of the old orders of the church, about 1,000 years old. And I don't know, there was just a lovely sense. His first words were absolutely perfect because he greeted the crowds with the word of Jesus after his resurrection, peace be with you. And then he spoke about the need for peace and building bridges. That's a theme that Pope Francis had taken up in recent months, talking about bridging, not building walls. And it's such a good, it was so perfectly crafted. I wonder, did he know in the morning that he was possibly garnering enough votes to be elected, and maybe over lunchtime did he put his notes together? But he's a very imposing presence. But I do know one thing about him is he's a gentleman in two senses of the word. He's gentle, but he's also a gentleman. And I really think the Cardinals, who were all smiling from ear to ear, they're, as you said, they're probably very happy. There's probably 132 of them going home shortly, very happy that they'll be going back to their own beds. But this man has to stay here and take over the guidance of the Universal Church. But my goodness, what a beautiful speech. All about reconciliation, about unity, about working together, greeting the memory of the former Pope, and then saluting the people of Rome, and in particular his friends in Peru, because you see he was a missionary for a number of years in Peru. So that's why he's got that connection. He speaks fluent Italian, fluent Spanish, fluent English, and his other languages as well. I don't think the Cardinals could have got anybody better. I'm certain of it. There's no one, there couldn't have been a better candidate to take the throne of Peter and to become the servant of the servants of God. So pretty historic and a wonderful atmosphere. The crowds are still clapping and embracing each other. The Swiss Guard are still on the podium. The Carabinieri, the band of the Carabinieri is now descending the steps of the podium in front of St. Peter's Basilica. They're playing their music. The bell of St. Peter, which only rings on Christmas Day and Easter Day, on the death of a pope and on the election of a pope, that bell is swinging into action. We can hear it across the piazza and being broadcast through every social media, radio, internet, television, satellite, and every other means of communication across the globe. So I must say, as a Catholic priest, I'm very proud, I'm very happy, but I think also I offer my congratulations to America for the election of your first Pope. I hope he won't be our last, because we have a long way to go. He's the 267th successor of St. Peter, and he's got quite a job in front of him. I noticed there's a band of cardinals, about 6 or 8 of them, on the balcony of St. Peter's, and they have not gone into the basilica. They're really enjoying watching this spectacle.
I can imagine.
Most of the cardinals and the Pope have gone. There's about 5 of them, and I'm just wondering what's going through their minds. I think, I can't see what they're saying. A few of them are kind of joking with each other. I've no idea. I can't lip read from this system.
That's all right. It's all right.
I bet a lot of them are saying, oh my God, that was so lucky. It didn't fall on me.
Let's soak in the sounds here live just for a moment. Everything that the Father just mentioned, the band, the bells tolling, the sound of the crowd. Let's listen.
Father Michael, if you're still there, I'd like to ask you about the significance of his name, Pope Leo XIV.
An amazing choice. I'll tell you why. Because Leo XIII, who was Pope from 1878 to 1903, had one of the longest pontificates in history. I think maybe he might have been the longest living Pope. And he was called the Pope of the Workers. And the reason for that is because the 19th century across Europe and indeed America was a period of extraordinary growth. If you think the spinning jenny, the train, the loom, the Whittlecock loom, all these things, in other words, what we nowadays call industrialization, had just begun. But that had put tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people out of work. And Pope Leo, who came from an aristocratic background, his family were noble, he was so surprising because Italy had just been united, 7 years before he was elected. So Italy was a new entity, and he wrote a famous document called Rerum Novarum, called About New Things, and he defended the rights of workers to a living wage. Now, in Europe, I don't know about the States, but we talk a lot about the minimum living wage and how many employers will only pay the bare minimum, and governments have had to step in to provide workers with that bare minimum in the hopes that the employers would be ashamed into giving a proper wage. So I think it's a wonderful choice, and I know I think I know why he chose it, because he wants to indicate that he's going to be a pope of the workers in the same way that Francis was a pope of migrants and of refugees and of poor people. I think this man is going to walk on a path similar to that of Francis. He has indicated that he wants to walk and work together with everybody. So I think that choice of a pope who died in 1903, it might seem a little bit remote for most people, but if you look up your history, you'll realize that he was venerated as one of the great popes of probably the greatest pope, to be honest, of the late 19th century into the 20th century. He spanned the bridge between the 19th and the 20th century, very much aware, as I say, of the unemployment which industrialization has caused. Curiously, we live in another age of the internet and of technology, and a lot of people are afraid of AI, artificial intelligence, and many of us are wondering, will we lose our jobs? So, this is where the church has so much to offer about the basic respect that each person is owed. And they're the words taken by Pope Leo XIV this evening, this afternoon, the respect that every single person is due, that we all have to honor each other. Some of more, some of less, but it's all about sharing and being a society where we try and treat people as well as we can. Can't do it perfectly, but we can try.
Father, if you'll stand by just for one moment, it's 1:49 here at WSB, and if you're just coming in here, Bill Caiaccio with Chris Chandler in the News Center in Atlanta, and we are bringing you live coverage of the selection and the introduction of Pope Leo XIV, who woke up this morning as Cardinal Robert Prevost, born in Chicago, dual American Peruvian citizen. He has chosen the name, he's been selected and then chosen the name Pope Leo XIV this afternoon. Let's get some Atlanta reaction before we go back to the Father in St. Peter's Square. WSB's Jonathan O'Brien, who always seems to get the cushy assignments of going out to the watch parties where they have food and drinking and so forth. He is at the Archdiocese watch party. What's the reaction there, man?
That's right. Well, I can tell you, Chris, that this watch party filled up with Archdiocese staff, including bishops and folks who work in the secretarial positions here. And as the name was announced of this, Chris, and, I spoke with Bishop Joel Conzen, the auxiliary bishop here in the Archdiocese of Atlanta, and he was talking about what we've heard Father Collins talking about, that symbolism of selecting the name of Leo. I think this is a big moment for Catholics around the world, but especially here in America. Chris.
Hey, Jonathan, it's Bill. And so one of the quotes that got me from his opening prayer, evil will not prevail. What were some of the thoughts on some of the remarks that he made in his opening prayer from the Archdiocese?
Say that again, Bill. It cut out.
Oh, that's okay. I was just wondering. So we were listening to his first blessing, Pope Leo, and one of the quotes that got to me: "Evil will not prevail." He also says, "Pray for peace in the world." What were some of the thoughts about what of his opening prayer from the folks there at the Archdiocese?
I have to tell you, Bill, there was a whole peace that fell over this whole room. Everyone was hanging on his every word. With the feed that we had in here, it was a little bit hard to understand some points of what he said, but I think everyone here was shocked. They were hanging on every word. They are interested in this man and the mission and the way he will now lead the church. I actually spoke with one of the other bishops here, and this was before it was announced. He said, we are so happy to have a pope, but I can't imagine being in those shoes.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I think everyone's feeling that way. They wouldn't want that weight, but it's such a joyful time for Catholics, Bill.
All right, Jonathan, we will hear from you through the afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
there at
Jonathan.
the Archdiocese watch party here in Atlanta. Go back to St. Peter's Square at 152. Father, we have just a couple minutes left here. At risk of sounding insular from this side of the ocean, one of the biggest parts of this story, Father Collins, is going to be here, that this is the first American pope, or at least American-born pope. What is, sort of on a worldwide scale and a historical scale, the significance of that?
We're an island. You're so right. I mean, you, as I said to you a moment ago, you should be so proud. You've produced your first, okay, it took you 2,000 years, but you've produced your first American pope. But I agree with what John said. What a beautiful presence when he walked out on the balcony. The silence of the crowd was immediate, and then a roar of appreciation. And his words were just really, really wonderful. So I'm very happy. He's reached out to everybody. He's mentioned all the faiths of the world he wants to work with, the nations of the world, and to try and bring a little humanity across the globe.
All right, sir, we've got about 1 minute here. Let me just get you to sum up your experience there. What do you think of everything you've seen and heard today?
I am so thrilled. It's been a wonderful day. It's been a quick conclave, which is a really brilliant sign, because it means that all the cardinals, it's an odd selection process. 133 men going in to select one of their group to be pope. Is it true we could find another way of doing it, a better way? Who knows? But I think that I'm looking at the crowd, and there are tens of thousands of young people. I think 80% of the people here must be young. And it's a great, great sense of achievement, and it's certainly looking forward to a new hope. Pope Francis had become very ill in the last number of years. We loved him, but he was struggling in his work. And now we've a man who's, as John said, that sense of peace. I just felt it. It went through me. And he's the most beautiful smile, as I said. I think his face is going to win a lot of people. His good disposition and his demeanor was so sincere. So that's my sum up.
Father Collins, thank you very much. We appreciate very, very much your time today. Thank you so much. Safe travels to you.
Okay, God bless. Bye-bye.
Father
Bye,
Michael
everyone.
Collins, based in Dublin, who you've heard with us on Atlanta's Morning News, who, in a gigantic stroke of good luck for us here, Bill Caiaccio, was in St. Peter's Square watching all of this. We thank him. We thank Dr. Alonso from the Candler School at Emory, who was with us earlier. 30 seconds or so here, Bill. You are in addition to being a longtime news reporter and anchor Catholic, what do you think about this?
I'm just a heartwarming moment. I mean, to see something like this and see the way the reaction to him coming out on the balcony, just amazing, and it really is a blessing to watch, honestly. And I can't help think about what Father Michael just said there a minute ago. He's going to be a Pope of the workers. I love that.
All right, thank you very much. We have all heard history this last couple hours. We appreciate you being with us. The 2 o'clock news is next, and then we'll pick back up with Eric Erickson. If you are just joining us, you'll hear the whole story here right from the top 4 minutes from now. I'm Chris Chandler with Bill Caiaccio. Good afternoon. It's 1:56.
When news breaks.
This is history in the making, and it's an awe-inspiring sight to see what's going on right now in Vatican City.
We've got it covered.
The window's opening, and the Cardinal Dean is stepping out onto the balcony.
Tune in often for the latest.
Cardinal Robert Prevost, he will choose for himself the name Pope Leo XIV.
95.5 WSB.
Atlanta's breaking news station.
Don't get fooled by window fiction.
It's Ted and Jonathan from North Georgia Replacement Windows. Now they're calling it vinyl composite, but no matter how they say it, vinyl windows are still bulky, cheap, and plastic.
Infinity from Marvin fiberglass windows are beautiful, not big and bulky like vinyl composite windows.
Experience the fiberglass difference at your home or in our new Alpharetta showroom. 0% interest available.
Infinity from Marvin, replacement windows, yeah!
Do you hear scratching, scampering, and stirring noises in your attic? Guess what? You have squirrels up there, and they're not leaving without a fight. But Breda Pest Management will battle those squirrels, guaranteed. Dave Baker here. When someone seals a squirrel's entry point in your attic, do you think the squirrel gives up? Well, they don't. They will chew their way back in. You got squirrels upstairs? You need the Breda Wildlife Guarantee. Only Breda covers every entry point, old and new. The other companies only guarantee the entry point they seal, so each time a squirrel chews a new hole, and they will, it'll cost you hundreds of dollars more. But under the Breda Wildlife Guarantee, you stay protected at no additional cost. A trained wildlife expert will dispose of their nesting, disinfect, and sanitize, and if a squirrel finds its way back in, Breda's got your back. Breda Pest Management. They handle bugs and critters. BREDA Pest.com.
Breda, Breda, no need to be afraid of bugs.
Listen up, because women have long waited for the world to recognize the importance of our health.
Northside Hospital goes beyond "we hear you" to "we're out here with you," because women deserve more than open ears.
They deserve open doors, and 1 ounce of action is worth 1,000 words.
Northside is rolling up our sleeves and getting to work for you.
This is a house call. Heard. Learn more at northside.com/heard.
WSB Atlanta, WSBB FM, and HD1 Doraville. 95.5 WSB, Atlanta's News and Talk.
Hey folks, it's Shelley Winter here. You know, sometimes they make fun of me around the office because I doze off at my desk while doing show prep. Well, you know why that happened? It's because of a lack of sleep. I have sleep apnea. So if you snore or have sleep apnea also, you're not living life to the fullest. So listen up. I know you're tired, but in all seriousness, this is important. My friends over at Palmetto Sleep are changing lives with a custom-fit oral appliance that stops your snoring and treats sleep apnea. I'm not talking about something you buy out of a supermarket. This is a custom-made for your mouth and covered by your private medical insurance. What I love most is that they do everything from the diagnosis to the delivery of the oral appliance and everything in between. They even provide a take-home sleep study and virtual consults. If you're ready for a great night's sleep, you're ready for Palmetto Sleep. Go to palmettosleep.com. That's palmettosleep.com right now. Don't suffer from another sleepless night. palmettosleep.com.
News, weather,
traffic. 95.5 WSB, Atlanta's News and Talk.
At 2 o'clock, I'm Austin Eller. This news brought to you by Brett Beckers. Our top story, it's a first for the Catholic Church.
CBS News special report, an American Pope.
Habemus Papam.
Habemus Papam. We have a new Pope. CBS Evening News co-anchor Maurice Dubois is at the Vatican.
Pope Leo XIV, an American. Robert Prevost, Cardinal originally from Chicago, is now the Holy Father. The last thing we were expecting. United States, really? And it's actually happened.
Jubilation in St. Peter's Square.
I'm feeling insane. I mean, this is such an incredible experience.
In his first address, heard here through an interpreter, he called to the world's 1.4 billion Catholics.
Pertanto, senza paura.
So without fear,
uniti,
united,
mano nella mano con Dio,
hand in hand,
e tra di noi,
with God and among ourselves,
andiamo avanti.
We go forward.
Again, an American Cardinal, Robert Prevost, has been elected Pope. He will be Pope Leo XIV. President Trump calling it a great honor for the U.S. CBS News special report. I'm Vicki Barker.
And the festivities aren't just limited to Rome. There, Catholics in Metro Atlanta have been watching these historic events unfold. WSB's Jonathan O'Brien is live at one church in the Metro.
That's right, Austin. We're here at the headquarters of the Archdiocese in Atlanta, and we were the only media organization inside the room as this announcement was made. And Austin, you know, when they make that announcement in Latin, of course, it's only the bishops and the top clergy that can understand it and identify that cardinal, then cardinal. And then when you heard the interpreter say, this is the first American pope, I can tell you that there was a shockwave through the room. People gasped, people applauded, some people chanted USA, USA. People were looking around in disbelief. There were tears. There was an overwhelming sense of joy. And then when he came out onto that balcony there in St. Peter's Square, it was almost as loud inside of the basement of the Archdiocese as it was in St. Peter's Square. There was jubilation. I was just speaking with the Archbishop of Atlanta. He was telling me that he was so surprised by this news. He is buoyed in his spirit by this news. And we're hoping to speak with him here in just a moment. And Austin, I know that this is probably being felt by Catholics here in America more strongly than anywhere. And of course, here in Atlanta, they are just overwhelmed. Reporting live at the Archdiocese in Atlanta, Jonathan O'Brien, 95.5 WSB.
Thank you, Jonathan. We've got live team coverage of traffic and weather up next. It is 2:02.
Hey, homeowners, it's Eric Erickson here. Do your windows and doors stick? Are you noticing cracks in the drywall or the brickwork? You might have a big problem. Serious issues need the serious experts at Engineered Solutions of Georgia. Their skills are unmatched, as are their foundation solutions. When these guys repair a problem, it's the last time you'll have to worry about it. Done once, done right. Start today with a free inspection. Go to ESOGrepair.com. That's ESOGrepair.com.
Dial 678 ESOG now.
News is temporary, but your financial plan shouldn't be. I'm Wes Moss, and at Capital Investment Advisors, we're focused on helping retirees invest for income. This means building and managing a portfolio that delivers a steady stream of income, regardless of the scary headlines of the day. If you're ready to shift your focus from the headlines to your core pursuits in retirement, reach out to our team at yourwealth.com. That's YOUR wealth.com.
At Kroger, we've lowered prices on over 1,000 items across our stores so you can save even more. Whether you're shopping in-store or online at Kroger, we've lowered prices on thousands of the items your family wants and needs. And with lower prices, your dollar goes further every time you shop with us. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Right now, USDA Choice Boneless New York Strip Steaks are only $9.99 a pound in the family pack with your digital coupon. Limit 5. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Turn your backyard into your family's favorite hangout to have fun, entertain, and celebrate this summer in a Bullfrog hot tub from Brown's Pools and Spas. Only Bullfrog offers the Jetpack Therapy system, allowing you to customize each seat to fit every body in your family. Right now, shop the Memorial Day hot tub sale. Instant rebates up to $2,500 or a free audio upgrade on select models. Hurry, offer ends May 27th. You'll be so glad you went to Brown's Pools and Spas. BrownsPools.com.
Hey, it's Belinda. When I built my home 21 years ago, I called Arrow Exterminators. And guess what? Still no bugs. Spring pests are here. Termites, mosquitoes, ants. But Arrow's got you covered with the most effective and environmentally friendly solutions available. And they offer a 100% customer satisfaction guarantee. Call 888-GO-ARROW or visit arrowexterminators.com for your free pest inspection. And tell them Belinda sent ya.
It's 2:05. Now we've got live team coverage of traffic and weather. Alex Williams is live in the WSB 24-hour traffic center.
Jammed up in Clayton County. Car fire cleanup, 75 southbound Forest Parkway exit 237. Only a left lane is open. Think about 1941 or I-675 south as an alternate. Also dealing with a left lane crash, 285 westbound, the inner loop in DeKalb just before Boulder Crest Road, slowing you from I-20. Traffic brought to you by your Atlanta Braves. May in the A is here, and your Braves have some incredible matchups and promotions May 5th through the 15th. Visit Braves.com/May in the A for tickets and more details. Atlanta Braves baseball. We are Braves country. Alex Williams, 95.5 WSB.
I'm WSB meteorologist Christina Upwards. Partly to mostly cloudy today with scattered pop-up showers and thunderstorms, high 81. Lows tonight in the low 60s. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with an isolated rain shower possible, high near 80. Saturday, mostly cloudy, breezy and cool, high 67.
It's 79 degrees in Norcross, 79 in College Park, also 79 in Midtown Atlanta. More news at 2:30. Breaking news when it happens. I'm Austin Eller, 95.5 WSB.
It's the WSB 5K a day bonus blitz. This hour's keyword is dream.
It was all a dream.
DREAM. Go to the WSB Radio app or WSBradio.com/cash for your chance to win. Again, that keyword is dream. DREAM. Join me live at 3 for the Von Haessler Doctrine, and I'll have your next keyword and chance to win at 5.
Hello, America. It is Eric Erickson here. Across the United States, the phone number 877-973-7425 if you want to be on the program. At the bottom of the hour, I'll get into Thom Tillis and his opposition to Ed Martin in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. A lot of activists now deciding that they want a primary Thom Tillis, but I gotta reshape everything I was going to talk about in light of Leo the 14th, the new pope. Because I gotta, if you can please separate me and my opinion from just me trying to explain the way the world works to you on stuff. I grew up Southern Baptist. In fact, I would still be Southern Baptist except for my Southern Baptist preacher when I went to college. When I went to college, I went from rural Louisiana, where I was in the First Baptist Church in Jackson, Louisiana, tiny town over there, and moved to Macon, Georgia, to go to Mercer University, and went to the First Baptist Church in Macon, Georgia that Sunday. That's now the First Baptist Church in Christ, and there was a woman in the pulpit speaking. And her argument was that we spend too much time in Scripture and not enough time in the hymnal. We're too scriptural and not sacred enough, is the way I remember she put it. And it blew my mind. First of all, you got a woman preaching, and she wasn't like the preacher that day, but they basically handed over the time to her in the pulpit. It blew my mind. I went home. I called my pastor in rural Louisiana, and I said, Brother Joe, what do I do? Is there a good Baptist church that I can go to? I just assumed going from First Baptist in Louisiana to First Baptist in Macon, Georgia, I'd be fine, but clearly not. He said, go find a church with the letters PCA. I'd be one but for the sprinkling, is basically how he put it. So I found the First Presbyterian Church in Macon, Georgia. As an aside, June 5th, for any of you in the listening audience who are around the Macon area, if you go to my church, First Presbyterian Church in Macon, Georgia, there is a men's event June 5th. That I will be the speaker at, and you're welcome to attend. You got to register, though. If you go, I think it's fpcmacon.org, First Presbyterian Church, Macon. You're more than welcome to go. But I am, so I go to a PCA church now. I'm in Reformed Seminary. I'm a Calvinist. I believe in all 5 points. Yeah, I totally bought into predestination. You know, interestingly enough, one of the main reasons I went to seminary is because I would speak so much on faith and culture issues on radio. I'd get asked to fill in on Sundays for some churches. And I kept saying, no. I don't feel comfortable. I've never been to seminary. So I went to seminary because I kept getting asked. I was like, God's telling me I got to go to seminary, I guess. So I went to seminary. These little churches would call back when they found out I was in seminary. And they say, would you do it? I said, yes. They said, where are you going to school? I said, Reformed Theological Seminary. And they're like, Reformed? Preacher's going to be there this weekend. As a matter of fact, there is one church. It will go nameless. It's a very large church. And they asked me to preach. And I said, okay, sure. I now that I've been in seminary, I'm comfortable doing it. They said, sure. They scheduled a date. I told my family and friends the day I would be doing it. I was pretty excited. My first time to actually do a real sermon. The church calls back, the secretary to the pastor calls back and says, hey, by the way, they wanted to know what seminary you're going to. I said, Reformed Theological Seminary. She says, great, I'll tell them. I kid you not, by the end of the day, somebody else from the church called and said, hey, we have a problem. Looks like we booked you on the pastor's birthday weekend, and we actually want to do an event for the pastor for his birthday, and so we're going to have to reschedule your time. Sorry, we'll get back to you. I said, no problem. 8 years later, I'm still waiting for the phone call. I'm Reformed. I was in a Reformed Baptist church. I'm in a Presbyterian church. So that is all to say, I'm not down with Catholic theology by and large. And I've got all these friends of mine who say, well, I know a lot of Christians who are Catholic, or Catholics who are Christians, but they're Christians in spite of the church, not because of the church. I'm just like, I'm going to leave that up to God. I've got a lot of friends of mine who are Catholics, who are devoutly Christian prayer warriors for me and my family. But all of that is to say, and I started this way so that you understand that I'm going to talk to you and try to explain this to you in a way that I am not Catholic, but I need you to know some things about the Pope, Leo XIV. A lot of Catholics in this country and abroad and in the leadership of the Catholic Church, they don't line up exactly where you or I might as political conservatives. In fact, I can tell you, one of the things I have learned from going to seminary over time, and I haven't been in a couple of years, just full disclosure, I haven't finished my degree. Life got so busy. I was for a time doing 6 hours of radio on a daily basis. I didn't have time to go to class, and I want to go back to class, and I had intended to go this coming semester, but I was kind of like, I find all these classes, So, but I'm going to go back. I don't know that I'm going to finish my degree. I just want to take the classes. I like the classes. My promise, by the way, when I went to seminary, I promised the president of the seminary I would not work on a degree. I would just take classes, because he was afraid if I tried to go in with that degree mindset, I would start sounding like that on the radio. He's like, just come take all the classes you're interested in. So that's what I'm doing. I've had the systematics. I've had the gospels. I've had the prophets. I've had the apologetics. But I got a lot more that I'm interested in taking. But nonetheless, I say this to say that I have found in my life, as I've gotten more serious about my faith, that there are a couple of things that have happened as I've paid more attention to my faith than politics. Is one, there are some issues on which I have changed, a very few issues on which I have changed. But if anything, where I've changed the most is my tone and tenor on issues. Because I have understood over time that I am to reflect Christ to the world. And while I will never make anyone happy, and I don't waste my time with, someone thinks I'm not being a good Christian, I am a sinner. I do say some things flippantly that make people mad, sometimes intentionally and I probably shouldn't. But there are a lot of people who, they go out of their way to be brash biblical donkeys all the time. They have no grace in their words. They have no grace in their heart. They have no grace in the way they speak. And I think that I've got to be different. And there are people who will condemn me because there are times I fall short of my own standard, and that makes them mad. It's like, well, you're a hypocrite. But also, I understand, particularly among Catholics, that there are wide-ranging views, and particularly because the Catholic community is a heavily immigrant community, their views on immigration tend to be different from my views on immigration. And I will say over time, the one issue where I think I have fundamentally changed because of putting my faith above my politics is how I approach the issue of immigration. Yes, I want to build a big high wall. I want to keep them all out. I believe in secure borders. But in how I talk about it and deal with illegal aliens, I don't want to round them up, put them in a helicopter, and push them out the Pinochet way. And the biggest issue, I think, where I have changed by putting my faith ahead of my politics is how I approach issues with others. I see friends of mine who have kind of drifted away from the church. They may call themselves Christian. They may even show up, but it's not really, they don't define themselves as Christ first. And they think, you know what, we can be as nasty as the left. We can lie just like the left. In fact, there's a strain of Christian nationalists in this country who is actually advocating for more lying by Christian politicians, that we should lie and dupe people and tell them what they want to hear to get into power and then reveal what we really believe, which I think is not a good strategy. I think it's contrary to the Bible. And what they say is, well, I mean, you would have lied to the Nazis to protect the Jews, would you have? Yes, and that's different from I'm going to lie to you to get your vote. I say all of that to say, Sean Davis from The Federalist is recirculating a retweet of Robert Provost from 2017 calling for gun control. He says the new pope favorably retweeted a left-wing Democrat senator's mockery of prayer and demand for gun control in 2017. It's Robert Prevost is retweeting Chris Murphy, who writes, to my colleagues, your cowardice to act cannot be whitewashed by thoughts and prayers. None of this ends unless we do something to stop it. I'm not surprised that a Catholic cardinal from Chicago who went to Villanova supports gun control. I'm not surprised at all that a Catholic cardinal would support gun control. And frankly, there is also the retweets. I myself have tweeted them. That Robert Prevost as a cardinal criticized J.D. Vance's statements on illegal immigration and J.D. Vance's explanations of Catholic doctrine. The cardinal, now Pope Leo XIV, criticized him. If you know anything about the leadership of the Catholic Church across the board, by and large, including more conservative clergy members, they really disagree with Donald Trump on his handling of illegal immigration. And it's not that they want illegal immigrants left in the country. It's that they want there to be a level of compassion shown even in the deportation process. Now, you also need to know this is big breaking news, and this is happening as I'm speaking. They just announced this. Pope Leo XIV is a Chicago Cubs fan. Is it a competitive advantage that the Vicar of Christ backs my second favorite baseball team? I mean, I wish he was a Braves fan, but I'll take a Cubs fan because I grew up a Cubs fan. I do root for the Braves now. I know a number of the Braves. They listen to the show. I love you. You know I do. But also I grew up. I got a soft spot for the Cubbies. I know the owners. They're great people. And the Vicar of Christ is a Cubs fan. Y'all, I mean, this is big news for me. This is very big. This is happening right now. ABC News is confirming Pope Leo XIV is a Cubs fan. Don't know if he's a Bears fan, and I'm pretty sure Jesus Christ himself cannot help the Bears. But the Cubbies, I mean, my gosh, my people, we could have another World Series in us. Okay, but nonetheless. So here's the thing. This Pope has views that you would expect from Catholic clergymen on immigration. And conservatives are now trying to look at this from a political angle. And here's the thing. One, I assure you he doesn't care. And two, I'm not surprised. But also, for those of you who are listening and you're now like, oh my gosh, they got a liberal and this sucks. The New York Times also hates the new Pope. This is from the New York Times a short time ago. In 2012, in an address to bishops, he lamented that Western news media and popular culture fostered, quote, sympathy for beliefs and practices that are at odds with the gospel, citing the homosexual lifestyle and alternative families comprised of same-sex partners and their adopted children. As Bishop of Chiclayo, a city in northwestern Peru, he opposed a government plan to add teachings on gender in schools, saying, quote, the promotion of gender ideology is confusing because it seeks to create genders that don't exist, he told local news media. So, you've got conservative political activists upset with Pope Leo XIV because of his views on immigration and guns. And now you have the New York Times upset with him due to his views on same-sex relations and gender ideology. He may be a good fit for the job he just got.
Follow Eric on X, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. Search EW Erickson.
220 Cool Ray Carrier, WSB 24-hour traffic center. Car fire cleanup continues in Clayton County, 75 southbound Forest Parkway, exit 237. Only a left lane is open. You can use I-675 Highway 1941 as alternates. Also slowed northbound due to construction on the 75 north ramp to 285 westbound. And the crash 285 west at Boulder Crest is cleared. Traffic brought to you by Active Pest Control. Termites are one of the most destructive pests. Let Active Pest Control develop a custom termite control plan for your home. For a free quote, visit ActivePestControl.com today. Alex Williams, 95.5 WSB.
It's the WSB 5K a day bonus blitz. This hour's keyword is dream.
It was all a dream.
DREAM. Go to the WSB Radio app or WSBradio.com/cash for your chance to win. Again, that keyword is dream. DREAM. Join me live at 3 for the Von Haessler Doctrine, and I'll have your next keyword and chance to win at 5.
We were ready to sell, but I got so overwhelmed with everything that needed to be done. Accepting the guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate shortened my to-do list.
Hi, this is Mark Spain. With the guaranteed offer from Mark Spain Real Estate, you can sell your home stress-free and receive the strongest cash offer in the industry. With our guaranteed offer, there are no showings, no open houses, and no stress.
And the value of getting all of my time back that I would have spent on home repairs, priceless.
Go to markspain.com to receive a guaranteed offer on your home today and start packing.
Certain restrictions apply.
You spend thousands of dollars, you waste weekends, and in a few years, you're back to square one because paint simply does not last.
RhinoShield, it's not paint. It's a high-tech ceramic coating system that protects your home from harsh weather and anything else that Mother Nature throws at it.
No chipping, flaking, or peeling, just decades of defense with RhinoShield, backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. Why keep throwing money at paint that just won't last?
RhinoShield is the answer. Go to RhinoShieldGA.com for your free evaluation.
If you've been taught that all bread is unhealthy, I'm here to tell you not if it's real bread. Hi, I'm Sue Becker from Bread Beckers with Sue's Healthy Minute. If you're struggling with weight gain, high cholesterol, constipation, even warts, or kids who seem to be constantly sick, come visit us at the Bread Becker store in Woodstock, where we have taught thousands of customers that real bread might be their healthy solution. I have a degree in food science, and for more than 30 years, I've studied the incredible health benefits of real whole grains and bread. I discovered that store-bought bread has had most of the nutrients in the grain removed during milling, and yes, even packages labeled 100% whole wheat. Make a healthy eating change in your life at Bread Beckers in Woodstock. We'll show you how bread, but only real bread, might be the answer to your family's physical ills. The Bread Beckers. Visit breadbeckers.com or our Bread Beckers store in Woodstock.
Noonan homeowners, join us for the grand opening of your new home outlet, May 15th through 17th. Save 20% off store-wide. We understand the demands of family life. Your home deserves more than what the budget sometimes allows. Now is your chance to save on the kitchen, bath, and flooring updates your home needs. Visit your employee-owned home outlet at 54 Bullsboro Drive to save 20%. 3 days only, May 15th to 17th, or shop online at homeoutlet.com.
Home Outlet is your home store.
Hey, it's Shelley Winter here for my good friends at PalmettoSleep.com. Let's talk about a serious business, sleep apnea. I suffer from it, and whether you've been diagnosed with it or afraid you have it, I have the solution. Palmetto Sleep is here to give you your life back. They make it easy to get help for sleep apnea because living without a good night's sleep is simply no way to live. Palmetto Sleep offers a custom-fitted oral appliance that opens your airway so you naturally breathe the way nature intended. The best part is they offer virtual consultations and in-home sleep testing. No overnight stays at a sleep center. Plus, Palmetto Sleep has all the doctors that you will need. Most appointments are virtual, and it's all covered by your private medical insurance. Don't suffer from another sleepless night or daytime fatigue like I do. Visit PalmettoSleep.com now. Visit PalmettoSleep.com. That's PalmettoSleep.com.
It's your money. Get it sooner. All you need is direct deposit with a checking or savings account at Coosa Valley Credit Union. This is Andy Harris, president of Coosa Valley Credit Union. Not only can you get your money sooner, but we believe in kinder banking where you deal with real people in person. So come see us.
Now is the season to have AquaGuard Foundation Solutions save your crawl space from the bad things down there and make the air you breathe in your home healthier with a crawl space encapsulation. Simply set up a free inspection at aquaguard.net. Remember, AquaGuard.
Your non-stop news source, 95.5 WSB, Atlanta's News and Talk. Get Eric's daily show prep email. Text DATA to 33777 and you'll be in the know.
Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The game is on to try to interpret the views of the current Pope. And again, I just think as I was, the point I maybe wasn't making precisely in the last segment was, if you're trying to interpret a Pope's positions based on American politics, probably one that's a little bit of self-absorption, but also you're not going to align it very well. You're just not going to. I don't think that's the case. Interestingly enough, the people are noting that he has apparently voted in some Republican primaries. They say he must be a Republican, except you don't register as Republicans in Illinois, so he must have voted a Republican primary. We don't know for what. But he's also retweeted James Martin, probably the most radically left-wing Jesuit in the world. So who knows? I mean, stop trying to interpret the guy's politics. Honestly, we'll figure it out as we move along. Now, I have to tell you, Kash Patel was under oath in the United States Senate this morning, and he was asked under oath what actually happened to Jeffrey Epstein. For the first time, we have an FBI director willing to say on the record what actually happened to Jeffrey Epstein.
Did Jeffrey Epstein hang himself, or did somebody kill him?
Senator, I believe he hung himself in a cell in the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Are you going to release all the information about that?
Senator, we are working through that right now with the Department of Justice.
When do you think you'll have it done, Kash?
I think in the near future, sir.
Like before I die?
Senator, we've been working on that, and we're doing it in a way that protects victims and also doesn't put out into the ether information that is irrelevant for production of the public, such as CSAM.
There you go. According to the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, Jeffrey Epstein hanged himself. Some of you will never be convinced that's the case. Myself, maybe. In there, I don't know. But that's what he says. You know, interestingly enough, though, what they're whispering now to people is there really never was a list. You know, the Epstein list, there never was a list. And they're realizing that that was an internet rumor that is not true. There never was a list. And you are never going to see the release of a list, despite what some are claiming. Now, when we come back, I want to talk about the Tom Tillis matter. But first, I got to tell you about Vision Computer. Vision would love to do business with you. If you need a computer, if you're buying a computer, if you're building a computer, go to Vision. Don't go to the one-size-fits-all big box electronics store, because that computer is going to not serve your needs. It's going to serve the needs of everybody. And if it's good enough for everybody, it's not good enough for each individual person's needs. Vision will talk to you about what you want to do and what you're going to want to do, and they're going to build you a computer that fits your needs now and your needs in the future. All you got to do is go to visioncomputers.com or call them at 404-COMPUTE, and you will get for free their tech support. It is world-class tech support, thousands and thousands of five-star reviews. We have a computer from Vision in our house. My kid's going to be able to use it for a very long time. If at some point he needs to upgrade, they'll be able to upgrade the pieces. He's not going to need a whole new machine either. It's fantastic. The customer support is world-class. He can call Vision whenever he has a problem, get an answer faster than a Google search. They can even remote in on occasion. They did that to help him get his email set up. 404-COMPUTE. Tell him I sent you. You'll save him more money. 404-COMPUTER, visioncomputers.com.
Live from the Superior Plumbing Studios.
News,
weather, traffic. 95.5 WSB.
Atlanta's News and Talk.
It is 2:30. I'm Austin Eller. This news brought to you by FGA Roofing. Our top story, Catholics across the world watch as the new Pope is revealed at the Sistine Chapel.
CBS News special report, the first American Pope's first message to the world.
Dio vi ama tutti.
God loves everyone.
E il male non prevarrà.
Evil will not
Siamo
prevail.
tutti nelle mani
We
di
are all
Dio.
in the hands of God.
Cardinal Robert Prevost, now Pope Leo XIV, speaking through an interpreter from the Vatican balcony, elected on day 2 of the papal conclave. CBS's Tina Kraus has more.
He holds dual citizenship with Peru and speaks Spanish. He's seen overall as a centrist. On some key social issues, he's viewed as progressive. He has long embraced marginalized groups, a lot like the late Pope Francis.
CBS News contributor John Allen.
For a long time, the idea was you can never have an American pope because you can't have a superpower pope. But you know, the world has changed in the 21st century. America is no longer the world's lone superpower.
President Trump calling it a great honor for the U.S. CBS News special report. I'm Vicki Barker in London.
And the festivities hit Metro Atlanta as well. A watch party was held at the headquarters of the Archdiocese in Atlanta, where attendees cheered when the first ever American-born pope was named. That white smoke became visible just after noon, signifying that a new pope had been chosen. And the last Pope Leo XIII, he was head of the Catholic Church for 25 years, way back in February 1878 to July 1903. We've got live team coverage of traffic and weather up next. It's 2:31.
Our weather is so unpredictable, and your roof takes all the abuse. If it needs repair or replacement, think of Finley First, the roof guys, the perfect match for any roofing issues. Schedule your free roof analysis at finleyroofing.com.
Roof. At Shane Company, we know getting engaged is a big decision. But once you know, you know. That's the way our customers feel when they choose a Shane Company engagement ring. They walk into a warm welcome and walk out with their dream ring, knowing they got it right. For almost 100 years, we've been offering personalized shopping experiences. And we're in it way past the honeymoon, with a free lifetime warranty that includes the center stone, cleanings, repairs, and resizing for life. Shop with us at shaneco.com or at your neighborhood store. Shane Company, your friend and jeweler.
Guys, if you're having ED or performance issues and Viagra and Cialis haven't worked, you need to come see Choice Men's Health. Give us a call or visit us online at choicemenshealth.com. Get your love life back and choose Choice Men's Health.
Comcast Business is celebrating Small Business Month by giving you a $1,000 small business bonus when you switch to a qualifying gig speed package from the company with over 99.99% network reliability. Just imagine the thousands of possibilities of a $1,000 prepaid card. Like possibility number 1, company merch for staff. Styling. Or possibility number 24, the latest software. Upgrade. Or possibility number 192, new equipment powered by gig speeds. Or possibility number 555, a 3D printer. Rapid prototyping, anyone? Switch to Comcast Business for over 99.99% network reliability, advanced cybersecurity, and now get started with a $1,000 small business bonus. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
And 6/22/25. New customers only with 2-year agreement. Other restrictions apply.
Dave Baker here. If the temperature inside your house doesn't fit with the temperature outside your house, you need to call Coolray Heating and Cooling. In May, you can get your HVAC system tuned up for only $79, or you can get up to $2,250 in rebates with the purchase of a complete Carrier comfort system, plus get free attic insulation. For comfort that lasts all year, visit Coolray.com to schedule your appointment today. Coolray and Carrier. Turn to the experts.
It's 2:34, time for live team coverage of traffic and weather. Alex Williams is live in the WSB 24-hour traffic center.
Car fire cleanup continues in Forest Park, 75 southbound Forest Parkway exit 237, only a left lane open. It's also slowing 285 eastbound the outer loop. And in Cobb County, a crash clearing out of the right lane as we speak, 285 northbound the inner loop Paces Ferry. Traffic brought to you by Rapid Radios. Rapid Radios are instant push-to-talk walkie-talkies offering national LTE coverage for a limited time. Go to rapidradios.com now for 60% off, and for UPS shipping, add code radio and get an extra 5% off. Alex Williams, 95.5 WSB.
This is WSB meteorologist Christina Upwards. Partly to mostly cloudy today with scattered pop-up showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon to evening hours. Today's high is 81, lows tonight in the low 60s. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with an isolated rain shower, high near 80. Saturday, mostly cloudy, breezy, and cool, high 67.
It's 80 in Union City, Suwanee, and Midtown. More news at 3 o'clock. Breaking news when it happens. I'm Austin Eller, 95.5 WSB.
He's got the courage to tell you the truth, even when it isn't popular. You're listening to The Erick Erickson Show.
Welcome
It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. Glad to have you back with me. So I've waited until the end because I ruffled feathers on social media last night and figured I would wait and fight the good fight now. And that is the issue of Thom Tillis and Ed Martin. Now, I don't know Ed well, full disclosure. I've crossed paths with him in the past. Perfectly capable guy, fine guy, good lawyer, and I am not opposed to Ed Martin being U.S. Attorney. Thom Tillis of North Carolina is, because of Martin's defenses of people who came into the Capitol on January 6th. Now, I will tell you as a hard and fast rule here, a very bright line, I don't think any lawyer should ever be penalized for representing any client. I don't like it on the left or the right. I try not to, in the course of this program, point out, unless someone only represents a certain class of people, to point out that someone has represented someone, and Ed Martin rushed to the defense of those on January 6th, who even the Supreme Court found some had been sentenced improperly, and many of them sentenced too much and too harshly, and there certainly were double standards, even as I think January 6th was a bad day and was not some sort of good thing. I don't have a problem with Ed Martin being U.S. Attorney, but Thom Tillis does, and that's the point. Back when when Barack Obama was president and he wanted Merrick Garland on the Supreme Court, Democrats excoriated Republicans in the Senate for refusing to give him a hearing. Now you got Republicans excoriating the Republicans in the Senate for refusing to have a vote on Ed Martin in the Judiciary Committee. And you got to get Thom Tillis on board. And yes, there are people who say, well, Thom Tillis, he supported a bunch of bad Biden nominees. Well, he supported Robert F. Kennedy Jr., too. That's a bad Trump nominee. He's been mostly a team player. He supported Pete Hegseth. He wasn't going to. He changed his mind. He supported Robert Kennedy. He supported, I think, Tulsi Gabbard. By and large, he supported the Trump nominees, but he's not going to support Ed Martin. So now, here's the point. Those of you who are upset with Thom Tillis, you don't have any leverage on him. I'm going this evening, I'll be headed up to Southern Pines, WEEB, the very first affiliate that put me on outside of Georgia. We're going to be broadcasting from WEEB tomorrow. We're going to be doing an event down in Aberdeen, North Carolina, with listeners in the Sandhills region who listen on WEEB. You can go to their website if you want to find out information. Those of you listening to me in North Carolina on my affiliates up there, you have leverage over Thom Tillis a little bit. But here's the problem. Last year, MAGA put Mark Robinson at the forefront for running for the governorship in North Carolina. Robinson was a bad candidate who had lots of baggage. Those of us who knew, you will note I did not come out. I've had great relationships with Mark Robinson in the past. I stayed away from that race. Mark Walker was my preference, former congressman up there. Robinson had all sorts of baggage, was damaged goods. It all came out on the campaign trail, and he refused to get out of the race. He not only cost the Republicans the gubernatorial race, he possibly cost them the Supreme Court race and several other down-ballot races as well. He was a bad candidate, and he was MAGA-backed. And you can't deny he was MAGA-backed. Donald Trump rushed out to support him almost day one, and people were warning Donald Trump to stay away from him, and he did. So Thom Tillis looks at MAGA as a bunch of idiots in North Carolina. You may not like that, but he does. And I don't even know if he wants to run again for office. He may be tired of the clown show in D.C. If so, North Carolina probably goes to the Democrats, and if so, the Republicans probably lose the Senate unless they get a great nominee in Georgia to take off John Ossoff. Marjorie Taylor Greene's not going to cut it, I'm afraid. So what do you do with Thom Tillis? I'm afraid you might be stuck with Thom Tillis not voting for Ed Martin. Now, here's how all this comes into play. Right now, there are parts of the president's base who, if you don't give the president everything he wants, you're a traitor. In fact, in the last 24 hours, I've heard Thom Tillis called a traitor, an enemy, a rhino. He is a rhino, by the way. He is way more moderate than any of us, generally speaking. But also, you need his vote on other stuff. You don't want a Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema setup, and he's been a more loyal Republican, more loyal to Donald Trump than Joe Manchin or Kristen Sinema have been to Joe Biden and the Democrats in the Senate. So do you want to throw him under the bus? This is one of the things that I learned as an activist, hard and painful ways, as McConnell regularly beat conservatives back in the day when I was running Red State, is you got to find leverage points and points of common ground. And oftentimes, you got to give them a pass on this one thing. Now, you can't give Tillis a pass on everything. You can't. And there's a lot of legislative priorities out there. But here's the thing. You beat Tillis up on this now. You decide you're going to run someone against him because of this one vote in May of 2025 for one person in the District of Columbia. Good luck getting him on board, well, let's say tax reform, because you know we got a big tax package coming up. You're going to need Thom Tillis and other moderate Republicans in the Senate to get on board your tax package. Thom Tillis is on the Judiciary Committee. You're going to need his support for judges. The president has dragged his feet on picking federal judges. Now, there are only 40 open seats, you should know. The Democrats closed a lot of seats, and before them, the GOP did when Trump was last in power. But you've only got 40 seats, and the president only just announced his first picks for the federal judiciary, which is, by the way, the slowest. Barack Obama, Donald Trump's first term, Joe Biden, even George W. Bush were faster with their nominees for the judiciary than Donald Trump has been right now. It's not a priority for him right now. You got to have Thom Tillis' vote in the Judiciary Committee. The problem is the Judiciary Committee is 12 Republicans and 10 Democrats. The 10 Democrats have all said they're voting against Ed Martin. Thom Tillis has said he's voting against Ed Martin. That's a 11-11 split in the Judiciary Committee. A tie is not going to move Ed Martin to the floor of the Senate. And so some MAGA folks are like, well, this is on John Thune. He's the majority leader of the Senate. John Thune can oust him. John Thune can take him off the committee. John Thune can strip him of his committee seat. No, John Thune can't. How do I know this? Because I've read the rules of the United States Senate. The majority leader of the United States Senate does not have the power to remove a senator from the Judiciary Committee. It doesn't work that way. So you can't remove Thom Tillis. So what are you going to do? Here's the problem. Under the laws of the United States, a U.S. attorney who's an interim pick, and Ed Martin is, he was picked on January 20th, has 120 days to get confirmed by the Senate. After 120 days, if there's no replacement, his appointment lapses, and the district court wherein the U.S. attorney serves gets to pick the replacement. And guess who the chief judge of the U.S. District for the District of Columbia is? Judge Boasberg. Remember that guy? The Obama pick who's been a thorn in the side? Yes. Do you wish to give Judge Boasberg the pick? Because I assure you he's willing to pick someone. At some point, reality has to trump emotion here. You can be mad at Thom Tillis for not wanting to go along with Ed Martin, but he's not going along with Ed Martin. So now, do you find someone else, or do you let Judge Boasberg make the pick? Because you don't have any leverage on Thom Tillis at this moment. You can whine and complain. You can threaten to primary him over an appointment in May of 2025. You can burn bridges with him such that you alienate him for the rest of the year and a half that he's there if he loses or doesn't run for office, and then you get even less from him. You could do all of those things, or you could just recognize you lost. Move on. Maybe the president can be persuasive in one last minute with Thom Tillis. I'm not sure that's going to work. But I would recommend that the people who are supporters of Ed Martin find a new place for him. It's wild to see nationwide outrage from online activists over one U.S. attorney pick in Washington, D.C. This is how... You know, I actually don't mean it pejoratively cult-like, but it kind of is that people are in the movement now. They are in the zone. They are so focused on advancing Donald Trump's agenda in every way that 90% of the people demanding that Ed Martin be the U.S. attorney, they've never met him. They don't know him. They know nothing about him. What they know is that Donald Trump wants him, and so they're for him, because if Trump wants him, he must be good. And there's a process. And the process must be, well, the process has got to be followed in the same way Barack Obama and the Democrats had to follow it with Merrick Garland, The Republicans are going to have to follow it as well. Gonna be interesting. Now, interestingly enough, as a side note here, who do you back now? Donald Trump or Kash Patel? On yesterday, Wednesday, the FBI director, Kash Patel, actually asked Congress to reject President Trump's budget request. He told a House hearing he needs more money in 2026 than President Trump asked for. He's trying to avoid a $500 million cut. He said adding back the $500 million that Trump wants cut would save 2,400 jobs. Quote, if we continue on the current trajectory, we will have to not only eliminate 1,100 vacancies currently at the FBI, I'm going to have to fire 1,300 more. So are people going to be mad at Kash Patel for not siding with the president? The president wants to wind down portions of the FBI. In fact, I'm reading now from my friend Jamie Dupree. Lawmakers seemed puzzled at first that Patel was publicly disagreeing with his own White House about the FBI's budget request to 2026, but that's exactly what the FBI director was doing, asking for $11.1 billion. Quote, I'm working through the appropriations process to explain why we need more than what has been proposed. So there would be no additional positions deleted from the FBI if you get the amount of money, asked Rosa DeLauro, Democrat of Connecticut. That's correct. The FBI is going to get over $11 billion. You've got Kash Patel publicly disagreeing with President Trump's budget in an appropriations hearing. Is there going to be outrage over that, or just Tom Tillis not giving? I mean, how do you pick what to be outraged over? There are all sorts of little things, but the bottom line is that if every hill is a hill to die on, you're going to die on every hill. You got to find some leverage over Tom Tillis. If you find some leverage over Tom Tillis, then maybe you can get Ed Martin. But if you can't find that leverage over Tom Tillis, you're not going to get Ed Martin confirmed. John Thune cannot bring him to the floor without a positive vote from the Judiciary Committee. The best you're going to get is a tied vote. So, I mean, activists, just listen. You could be mad at me for telling you the truth, but the reality is you've got to find a way to navigate and not make every hill a hill to die on. As someone who died on every hill in the past, if you're going to spend all of your capital on Ed Martin, you're not going to have capital for something else. Tom Tillis was with you with Pete Hegseth. He changed his mind on that, on Robert Kennedy and Gabby Giffords and these others he thought he was going to vote against. If you're not going to give him a vote against Ed Martin, you're going to make sure that he is loyal on everything. You're going to find he's very loyal on very little things. That's just the way politics in Washington, D.C. works. As someone who's been in the game for a while, who was a conservative activist, I can just tell you, not every hill can be your hill to die on, and Ed Martin, for most of you, shouldn't be that hill. If you want to primary Tom Tillis in North Carolina, good luck. I don't know that he's going to run again anyway. Now, I got to tell you about Old Glory Bank. They are my bank. They would love to be your bank. OldGloryBank.com is the website. Old Glory Bank is a bank by conservatives for conservatives. They would love to have you involved with Old Glory Bank. Why? Because they are a bank that is against debanking trends. They are a bank started by conservatives for conservatives. They've even bypassed Wall Street for Main Street and how they're getting investors to invest in Old Glory Bank because they want to be uniquely a small business the bank that is designed for small businesses and individuals and families. They have no fee checking, no fee savings. That's what I've got. They have more expansive accounts. They've got business accounts. They've got CDs. They can do mortgages. They can do car loans. They give you great rates. They've got very competitive rates right now. They would love to have your business at oldglorybank.com. You fill out the account online. You can even deposit cash at 88,000 retail locations that get into your account. I use it plenty. Oldglorybank.com. Oldglorybank.com. Member FDIC. Equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply.
You're at the intersection of politics, news, culture, and current events. It's the Erick Erickson Show.
249, Cool Rate Carrier, WSB 24-hour traffic center. Still got the travel advisory into Clayton County. Car fire cleanup, 75 southbound Forest Parkway, exit 237. Only a left lane is open. It's jammed up 285 east back to the airport. 85 northbound coming up to the airport. We also got a crash in the right lane on the ramp to 285. That's why you're jammed up out of Union City. Traffic brought to you by Whole Foods Market. Build a self-care routine at Whole Foods Market. Save 33% on body care and candles with Prime through May 13th while supplies last. Shop Shop in store or online. Terms apply. Alex Williams, 95.5 WSB.
When news breaks,
White smoke signals coming from the Sistine Chapel at this hour,
we've got it covered.
which means we do have a new pope.
Tune in often for the latest.
The giant bell ringing, and that is the formal announcement and confirmation that there is a new pope.
95.5 WSB, Atlanta's breaking news station.
I'm here with Chris Hoffman, the founder of Hoffman Financial Group, to discuss one of the biggest blind spots that people face when saving for retirement, and it's a head scratcher. Chris, how do so many people not know what they're invested in?
That's the biggest flaw that everybody runs into. They think they know what equities they have, they think they know what bonds they have, but they really don't know how those mutual funds or how those index funds are performing in conjunction with one another. So, I would liken this to a big pot of soup, and we're just throwing all the ingredients in the refrigerator in this thing. It's not very good. It's just a mishmash of stuff. And sometimes you like the way it tastes. Sometimes you don't. And when you don't know why. You don't know if you got too much chicken in there or too much vegetables in there or what's going on. And I ask every caller that comes in for an initial consultation, do you know how your portfolio is broken down? And they say, well, I've got, 20 or so options in my 401k, and I just picked 2 of them or 3 of them. I thought I needed some international. I thought I needed some U.S. equities. I thought I needed some bonds. And they're just guessing. So you have to absolutely know what you're invested in, and that's where we will run the 401k portfolio x-ray for you, because that'll break it down. If you're not proficient at investing and don't understand this world, we will walk you through it. Not knowing what you're invested in is a big hindrance to growing and protecting your money. We will run a portfolio x-ray for you and educate you on exactly what's in your portfolio.
Set up a time to get your complimentary portfolio x-ray today. Call the Hoffman Financial Group at 404-737-3858. That's 404-737-3858, or book online at unleashyourmoney.com. Investment advisory services offered through Brookstone Wealth Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Insurance and annuities offered through Hoffman Financial Group Incorporated, Georgia Insurance License number 163546.
WSB Atlanta, WSBB FM, and HD1 Doraville. 95.5 WSB, Atlanta's news and talk.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethos.com/news. That's ethos.com/news.
Seems everything costs more these days. Gas, groceries, and when's the last time you checked your wireless bill? When it comes to Big Wireless, if you're staying, you may be overpaying. Switch to Consumer Cellular to get the same fast nationwide coverage without the big wireless bill. Plans start at just $20 a month, and now for a limited time, new customers can get their second month free. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit a store near you, or consumercellular.com and start saving today. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. Taxes, fees, and other third-party charges will apply. See website for additional details.
95.5 WSB, Atlanta's news and talk.
Get the podcast, live stream, email, and social media links by texting Eric to 33777 now.
Welcome back. Just a reminder, I'm going to be broadcasting live from WEEB up in Southern Pines, up from me, south for some of you, tomorrow, then doing an event with listeners up there in Aberdeen, North Carolina. We're going to be doing this around the country. Stay tuned for your stations. We got a lineup coming later this year as we hit the road, and particularly during the summer, and go meet you guys live. Now, before I get out of here, this is wild to me. So the British government has come up with a plan to bring along global cooling. They essentially want to dim the sun, although they're denying that's what they want to do. Essentially, they want to do aerosol injections to cool the planet. Now, here's something you should know. You know, I've talked to you about the Hunga Tonga Hunga volcano in the past. and it blasted trillions of gallons of water into the atmosphere. And at the time, the scientists said that was going to be a trigger for global warming. It was going to be a precipitating event for lots of global warming. We were going to surpass the average, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, well, we're starting to settle back down sooner than expected. According to some research, it looks like global temperatures are already declining faster than expected. But now the British have decided they want to do this plan. And the problem is would affect everybody on the planet, not just the British. And one of the ironies here is that, you know why they've determined that they want to do essentially smog, they want to do aerosol pollution to block the sun, is because in the 70s, everybody got serious about what acid rain and the like. They started cleaning stuff up. And now that the Chinese are the last major polluters on the planet, and they've been cleaning up their game, not as much as us, but they've been cleaning it up, global temperatures are starting to rise because there is no air pollution to block the sun. So now the British scientific team, ARIA Research, they're calling it, is like, hey, we should probably cause air pollution again. Professor Mike Hulme of Cambridge University pointed out the experiments were setting Britain on a slippery slope toward mass deployment of technologies that will be impossible to prove are safe, effective, and reversible until they're actually in the sky. The sum of £57 million is a huge amount of taxpayer money to be spent on this assortment of speculative technologies intended to manipulate the Earth's climate. ARIA has been given an eye-watering $800 million budget to play with little to show for it so far, except some off-the-wall ideas and astronomically high wage bills. Ian Gurr, the chief executive, is being paid £450,000 annually. So if you want to get a sense of that in dollars, that is $203,000 is this guy's annual salary to come up with wild ideas to solve global warming. And his major global warming idea is to pollute the upper atmosphere to cool the planet. Bill Gates and other lefties out there have been taking it into their hands to do this stuff for a while, and they sure do have a God complex. They sure have a God complex, and I'm just not sure that it's a wise thing for us to be playing God like that. In fact, I'm 100% sure it's a very bad idea for us to be playing God like that, and yet here come these guys advancing these wild environmental save the planet ideas, and the rest of us, we're the ones who are going to have to pay for it if it goes badly. You would think Donald Trump's government would get involved in this, and I suspect they are. They're getting rid of the Energy Star program, the hyper-efficient appliances that break after 5 years. They're getting rid of the program, which is a good thing that they're going to do. It's wild to see governments decide that, hey, we're going to pollute the upper atmosphere to cool the planet. Oh, there are 198 governments, and you're going to take it upon yourselves. The level of arrogance is astonishing. All right, see you guys tomorrow from North Carolina.
WSB consumer expert Clark Howard.
I've had a rocky relationship with Robinhood, the investment platform, because a lot of the vibe with Robinhood is doing rapid trading, buying and selling all the time, and not really thinking about being strategic about how you invest. But Robinhood is growing up. And now they are offering an extremely low-cost robo-advisor, and it costs just a couple of $100 a year, which is crazy cheap for having access to robo-advisory services. So Robinhood is going through a transition now, looking not just to be for the hot stock or the hot crypto or anything like that. It's about you long-term investing, and I love that change. I'm Clark Howard.
news,
weather,
traffic.
95.5 WSB, Atlanta's News and Talk.
At 3 o'clock, I'm Bill Caiaccio. News is sponsored by Dr. Roof. Our top story, history.
We started running up as soon as we heard that there was white smoke and everyone was cheering. So just a lot of anticipation, and you can feel the excitement.
He's part of the tens of thousands at St. Peter's Square to see the newly elected Pope, and he's the first American pontiff. He takes the name Pope Leo XIV.
CBS News special report. There is a new Pope, and he's American.
Ac reverendissimum Dominum, Dominum Robertum Franciscum.
CBS's Maurice Dubois in Rome.
Pope Leo XIV, an American. Robert Prevost, Cardinal originally from Chicago, is now the Holy Father. The last thing we were expecting. United States, really? And it's actually happened.
Prevost has spent his career ministering in Peru. Papal contributor John Allen.
I think what people are going to see is a man of great warmth, great accessibility, and a man who I think what he's going to want to do is reach out and kind of gather this crowd and in a virtual sense gather the whole world into his arms.
He is the first American Pope in the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church. CBS News special report. I'm Cammie McCormick.
Catholics in Atlanta are reacting after seeing and hearing from the new Pope. WSB's Jonathan O'Brien reports live from the Atlanta Archdiocese.
Bill, there were cheers and tears inside the Archdiocese watch party when word that an American had been elected Pope. You can hear that person. Did I just hear that? Shocked by this news. There were chants of USA after the news came down. This woman telling me.
I was so stunned. I never thought I would ever see this in my lifetime. So it's great.
The weight of the office is on the mind of Bishop John Tran, who tells me.
I feel it's a joy for us, but certainly a burden for him. In some ways, I feel sorry for him. I know that I will pray for him every day, and just the responsibility he has.
The Archbishop of the Archdiocese clearly also surprised by this decision, and he says he hopes to learn more about the new Pope. Reporting live in Cobb County at the Archdiocese headquarters, Jonathan O'Brien, 95.5 WSB.
83 degrees in Atlanta. We're watching for pop-up showers or storms this afternoon. Meteorologist Christina Edwards has Atlanta's most accurate and dependable forecast coming up. DeKalb County's new CEO delivering her first State of the County address.
Mission Possible is DeKalb County CEO Lorraine Cochran-Johnson's theme for her first year.
We went to work in record time.
She touts in her first 100 days a coordinated winter storm response, balanced budget, and historic investments in public safety.
Public safety is an essential element of economic development. Business owners need to feel safe opening their doors and welcoming customers. Families need to feel confident raising their children in DeKalb.
Cochran-Johnson says pushing what's called the 10x10 water bill hike to modernize infrastructure is among the best decisions of her life to ensure DeKalb's future. Veronica Waters, 95.5 WSB.
Bill signings today from Governor Kemp, one banning state money from covering transgender care for the state's prison inmates.
Taxpayer dollars should not be used for procedures like this, and this legislation codifies that common sense step.
The governor also signs legislation to double the payout to $150,000 for a full-time school employee if they are killed on the job. It is 3:03. The Von Hessler Doctrine begins in less than 2 minutes. Right now, live team coverage of traffic and weather in the 24-hour traffic center. Alex Williams.
Travel advisory continues in Clayton County. Car fire cleanup, 2 right lanes now blocked. 75 South Forest Parkway, exit 237, jammed up through Hateville. It's also got 285 eastbound, very slow. Back to before Riverdale Road. Also on the south side, crash in the right lane of the 85 north ramp to I-285. That's why you're jammed up out of Union City. Downtown already very full. Southbound from the 85 400 merge down to I-20. Northbound delays start around Highway 166, Langford Parkway up to Freedom Parkway. Traffic brought to you by Scott Antique Markets. The Scott Antique Markets is this weekend. There's no telling what you'll find. Visit the Atlanta Expo Centers at I-285 and Jonesboro Road. It's the Scott Antique Markets this weekend. ScottAntiqueMarket.com. Alex Williams, 95.5 WSB.
I'm WSB meteorologist Christina Upwards. Partly to mostly cloudy today with scattered pop-up showers and thunderstorms, high 81. Lows tonight in the low 60s. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy with an isolated rain shower possible, high near 80. Saturday, mostly cloudy, breezy and cool, high 67.
82 in Alpharetta, 84 in Stockbridge, 80